the Youth Voices panel, which will have a slightly longer amount of time. And also, similarly with the best practices in providing solutions, because there are 3 people to speak there. So they'll each have their 10 minutes. Youth Voices, I believe, will have 8 minutes each because there's quite a few people there, 6 people to speak. So when the event starts, Dr. Adan will welcome us in and welcome, I guess, give permission to the waiting attendees so that they can access the Zoom call. And then I will go through by reading the kind of summary of the event and reading out loud our objectives, and then leading us to the beginning of the program. And then we'll begin to follow through this particular schedule. So in relation to the program outline, once we kick off from the opening greetings and introduction, I shall continue to introduce each of you in turn, up until we get to the Youth Voices segment, which would then be taken over. And then I'll come back in for best practices and continue those introductions there. Ordinarily speaking, when I'm moderating events like this, I do like to take notes and then share those notes and highlights back out to the audience. So when you finish speaking, you may find me saying, "Oh wow, that's amazing," and the key points I really pulled out from your dialogue was these things, and I may just ask a question or so. However, I will make a point of trying not to have too much conversation between talks, just so that we can stay on track and leave opportunities available to later. I will also invite the audience to feel comfortable to drop questions into the chat area, and you are more than welcome to have a look and observe that area when you're talking, in case there are any questions that you feel you'd like to answer. But again, we can always save questions for periods between talks, where I do usually go through those, so that's not a problem there. So the only thing I wanted to just double check was, could everyone just please confirm to me that their name has been spelled correctly, or everything is correct, or if they would like me to amend their introduction in any way. Please feel free to just have a look, just so that when I am doing the introduction, we're making sure that everything is as you would like. And aside from that, I think that's fine.
Should we have screen sharing rights right now? Because I cannot share my screen.
Okay, well, you can share now. You should be able to share. Dr. Adan, would you like to give those sharing rights?
Everybody will have sharing rights. I'm making you a co-host, so
okay.
Everyone will have sharing rights. So some speakers are just coming in. See. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, great. So now that we have quite a few attendees in the room, I'm really keen to learn where everyone is coming from. So could you please just put the location in the world that you're from, and I guess what it is that you do at work, not where you work, but what did you do? So for example, Ghana, primary school educator, etc. So we can get to know each other. Hello, Juliana. Nice. Tanzania, Northeast Nigeria. Okay, we've got some people in Ghana, Sri Lanka, and France. Lovely. Human rights activists in Cape Town. Very nice. Wow. Very interesting group of attendees we have today. I think extremely fitting for the speakers as well. Very, very good match. Educator. Nice. Senior student in the Philippines, governance and regional integration expert in Zimbabwe. Lovely. Lovely, lovely, lovely. So also, what brought you to this event? What are the key things that you're hoping to get out of it? What are you trying to learn? What do you want to hear about? What would you like to know? I'm always very curious about the attendees. Oh, well done, Queen Zainab. So that's up now. Perfect. Great. Good. Looks like most of us have got our backgrounds up. Nice. Gauteng, I've been to Gauteng. Very, very busy group of people. Great. So I'm just going to kickstart everything now. Dr. Adar, are you okay with that?
Go ahead.
Thank you. And please feel free to continue giving your introductions. We're definitely still seeing them. Okay. So before we begin, I would definitely like to say a very, very big thank you for the organizers of today's event, of which we have the Center for SDG and Global Education USA, African Cultural Promotions Incorporated, we have McBan Arts, Sub-Saharan Open University, and Irene Menakaya School and the Youth Together Global. So since 2012, the Youth Forum has established itself as the largest gathering of young people at the United Nations, bringing their ideas, views, solutions, and innovations to policy discussions on issues that matter to them. In that context, the forum is the platform for young leaders and representatives of youth-led and youth-focused organizations and networks from around the world to engage in a dialogue with the UN, the member states, and to explore ways and means of promoting youth development and engagement with a view of realizing the SDGs in a decade of action. In 2022, ECOSOC, as I want to say, the Youth Forum will be convened by the President and is co-organized by the Department of Economic and Social Affairs and the Office of the Secretary General's Envoy on Youth, in collaboration with the United Nations Interagency on Youth Development, and co-convened by the Major Group for Children and Youth and the International Coordination Meeting of Youth Organizations, with some technical input from youth organizations that are relevant of the forum. So the objectives of the forum will be to provide a platform for young people to engage in a dialogue with the United Nations member states and other actors on concrete actions to rebuild from COVID-19 in a way that advances the Sustainable Development Goals at the grassroots, national, regional, and global levels. It will also be to share experiences and identify solutions to support youth in surmounting the devastating impact of COVID-19 on the economic, social, health, and education, as well as bolstering their resilience to future shocks. We also hope to allow young people to contribute to the review of the implementation of the 2030 Agenda and the SDGs, and to shaping policy recommendations at the high-level political forum and other intergovernmental fora, such as the UN's Transforming Education Summit, the UN's Ocean Conference, the Financing for Development Forum, and others. And our last objective is to discuss and report on progress for the implementation of the UN Youth Strategy, Youth 2030 Working With, and for young people, and leverage the forum in support of advocating and advancing the UN's youth strategy, as well as increasing coherence between the Youth Forum and the UN Youth Strategy. Now, in responding to the theme of 2022's ECOSOC Youth Forum, our organization, Youth Together Global, will discuss the plight of youth in communities of developing countries through the theme of Youth Together Global, Youth Community Action for Sustainable Future. We are committed to this discussion in engaging youth and communities for the decade of action through empowerment, exchange, education, and entrepreneurship. Our event will explore the opportunities for youth in communities to act in ensuring their future is made sustainable. The objective of the event is to explore empowerment skills to enable youth to develop their inherent skills and be able to take action for their sustainable future. This event will also provide a platform for youth and young people to share thoughts on best practices in taking action on their own future. And we will be responding to guiding questions through presentations and shared discussion on the following. 1, what are the empowerment resources in getting youth into taking action for a sustainable future? 2, how can youth explore their potential in building back better from COVID-19 and achieving their sustainable future? And 3, what are the best practices in providing solutions to challenges and taking action in realizing the SDGs priorities for youth across the world in committing to the decade of action? So, as I mentioned before, however, we have so many new people in, I'll say it again. My name is Tanisha Tago. I'm actually now Professor Tanisha Tago. I am the CEO of Apples and Pears Holdings. I'm also an entrepreneur and the founder of the Ladies Entrepreneurship Club. It is an honor to be welcoming you all today and to be speaking to you and sharing this forum with you on this topic, such an important topic. So to begin, I'd like to introduce Dr. Ada Okika, the Executive Director for Center for SDG Global Education USA and Chancellor for Youth Together Global. Dr. Ada, you ready?
I wish I'm ready. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
This is a wrong time, but it's good because you have to consider other parts of the world, their time zone, in order to have this event. So this event is 7:30 a.m. So every 10 minutes, my eyes was on my phone, on my time, to make sure that I start the Zoom on time. And I have to get others, especially the speakers, to be able to come on board. But here is it. We are starting, and we are happy to join the international community to mark the ECOSOC Youth Forum 2022. The forum is actually starting officially tomorrow, 19th to 20th. But all side events were scheduled to start from today. So we are lucky to be among the side events that are holding today. The essence of ECOSOC Youth Forum was created 12 years ago, 11 years ago, by the United Nations to be a platform for youth, the young ones, to lend their voices to issues concerning them. And it has been successfully going on, having youth advocates, youth to speak on themselves and government policies. It has also ignited action for member states to have youth days in their various countries. So, and then more youths are coming up to explore their inherent potentials in being an advocate for youth. So it has been a successful forum for the young adults, But we at our own organizations, we came up with the YOUTHGETHER Global as an initiative to get the youth in communities involved in the United Nations agenda. So this year's theme is trying to give us the COVID-19 recovery, root-taking action for a sustainable future. That is the theme for discussion at the global community for this year's ECOSOC Forum. And this ECOSOC Forum is usually organized by the ECOSOC and Social Council, DESA of the United Nations. So I won't waste most of your time because we have the board chair of YOUTHGETHER Global to give you a rundown of what we are doing in YOUTHGETHER Global. But to let you know that 2022 YOUTHGETHER ECOSOC Youth Forum is looking at youth, COVID-19 recovery, and their sustainable future. It's also having a mark on the SDGs, SDGs, which is very, very important in discussion. We have SDG 4, SDG 16, SDG 17, and SDG 8 for this particular forum. These are the issues to be discussed. And ministerial, at the end of it, or the resolution or agreed conclusion or document will be out to be the next guideline that will be on issues concerning youth globally. So we are going to cue into that as we are screened in for this moment. Thank you for listening, and I hope your input and the listeners will be able to make good intervention contributions to ensure that we rend our voices on behalf of our youth in rural communities. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adele. Perfect. So I think this means that we are ready to get started. So our first discussion is on our organizations and journey in the engagement of youth communities. And on this topic, we'll be having 3 speakers: Ambassador Dr. Bannister Devon, Executive Director at McBain Arts; Dr. Achade Dennis Asongba, Director of African Cultural Promotions Incorporated; and His Royal Highness Prince Dr. Osita Animeka, Chairman and Governing Council on YOUTHGETHER Global and President for Sub-Saharan Open University, Africa. So please feel free to take the floor. I believe that the first speaker is Ambassador Dr. Bannister Devon. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Tanisha. A pleasant good morning to each and every one of you, all of the panelists, all of the speakers here, those that are attending. If we are live on Facebook, those live on Facebook and YouTube, and whomever will be reviewing this video later in the future. Pleasant good morning to each and every one of you, and at the same time, good afternoon, or good night, or good day, depending on where you're joining us from. It is indeed great to be here this morning. Like Dr. Ada said, we have to wake up pretty early, while some of you might be up already. But hey, we do what we have to do when we want to create that atmosphere and make that access point for our youths, just like ourselves. Interesting, I'm going to start. There's a colleague here who might laugh when she hears this. We know that education is key. No matter what we might say, no matter how we might look at it, education is key. Education is very important. And there are times when we feel that education might not be needed the way it should be needed. There are times we might feel it's addressed the way it should not be addressed. But I've come to learn something growing up, and I run with it until today. And that is, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. And it's something that I've watched. It can cause you, because you might say, oh, for me to get a bachelor's degree, it's only going to cost me, hypothetically saying, $1,000 US. But then if you go and you do something stupid out of ignorance, that might cost you a lot. So with a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of education, you'll be able to save yourself a lot. With that being said, McBain Arts is an organization where we provide a bridge. We provide a bridge. So if you look at our logo, just under our logo, you will see it says an avenue for the arts. We create that avenue, we create that bridge where we allow youths to take their craft, their talents, be it music, be it arts, be it drama, any single thing that you would use, and bridge it with what you like, what you love, to the point whereby we show people that, yes, you might have the actual skill, but at the same time, the way how society is going today, you still need that piece of paper, because to go and play somewhere, to go and sing somewhere, to go and act somewhere, do something, yes, that is good to know that you have the raw talent. I have some raw talent, yes, But at the same time, in order for me to achieve certain things, in order for me to go and, let's say, teach somewhere, I still need that piece of paper, because they will ask, what is your qualification? Where is your qualification? Well, what Magban Arts does is, yes, we give you some of the teaching, but then at the same time, we partner with other organizations that would help guide you into getting that full-scale education that you're looking for. And then at the same time, we have a lot of youths around the world that we worked with and that we are working with through various organizations, helping them to bridge that gap. Now, when we look at it, we notice that there's a lot of young people that might get easy access through let me choose my word wisely here. There's a lot of young people that might be able to get access a little bit easier compared to some. Let me say it that way. Yes. Our focus is more so the underprivileged. The ones that doesn't have the access to it, they want to have access to it. The ones that want to be able to garnish that access and doesn't have it. The beautiful thing that we like and we love is we were blessed to partner with a few organizations that understands what it means for the underprivileged to gain that access. And that is where we focus on mainly gaining, providing that access, which again brings us back to that avenue that we create, so that youths can be able to get that access, but that those that are underprivileged. So what we do is we take the time to encourage other organizations, encourage schools, encourage universities to provide that scholarship or to provide the resources that's needed for the underprivileged to be able to gain that education. So for example, you might find that someone living in the Caribbean or someone living in South America or in Africa, they might say, I want a degree, but I want it from this school. But here it is, you're trying to get it and you can't get it. Why you can't get it? Because you don't have the resources. But here it is, we have either some organizations or we have some businesses that might be able to provide that bridge through them having the resources, whereby they can say, hey, we can provide the resources for you to gain this access. That is where we usually say to a lot of them, jump on board so that you can be able to make an impact. You can leave an impact in the lives of a lot of these youths today. Because why, again, we don't have the access, we don't have the resources. So by them having the resources, them being able to provide a resource to a lot of these youths in the underprivileged community, it is very important that we show them the benefits behind it. We show them that, well, hey, you're leaving a mark, you're making an impression today in the lives of these youths, that tomorrow you can turn around and say, yes, I had a hand in that and I'm proud of that. So when we look at arts overall as well, we see that it can help you in more than one ways. For myself, I used to say I don't need an education. All I need is music. Yes, I used to say that growing up. So when my teacher in high school said to me, we don't need, you need every single subject that we teach in school. I said, no, I don't need every subject you teach in school. His name is Sir Roland Holder. He said, you need every subject. I said, no, Mr. Holder, I do not need every subject. He said, you need English, you need maths, you need some science, you need a little bit of this, you need a little bit of that. And it didn't resonate at the moment. And then he said, come to my office later and I'll show you. And when we sat in his office and he showed me how he showed me how I can take every subject that I do and bring it back. And I was able to use that to drive my focus, to drive my drive, and to bring me to this place where I'm at today. So I've decided from there to use that and to show others that you can take what you love and you can marry it to the other stuff so that you can be able to succeed and make things and let's say a little bit easier for you to learn, to grasp, to understand. And those are the things, and those are the areas in which we try to help a lot of the youths today. Therapy. Right now, there's a young man that I know. If you tell him, or you say to him, touch the books, or or go this way or something, he doesn't respond. But the moment he hear a sound of an instrument or someone sings, you'll get his undivided attention, and he'll do everything that you ask him to do. So everyone reacts and responds differently. But once you can find it, you can tap into it, and you can show them this is how to go with it. So our focus, again, is to partner with organizations, bring organizations together, and show them how we can be able to help these youths, so that they don't fall in that trap of ignorance over education. So with that being said, I will leave it right there, because I know it's early morning and a lot of the other speakers would like to make their point. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. So, I mean, you opened with an amazing quote. I think quite a few of us, we enjoyed that quote, wasn't it? It was, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. Thank you very much for that. Before we continue with my notes, I think it's good for me to get the next speakers up. So next is Dr. Achade Dennis Asongba, Director for African Cultural Promotions Incorporated. You have the floor.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Morning, yes. Can hear you perfectly.
I know it's early, but we have to do our duty. It's our job to help our people, communicate with our people. No father, my name is Achari, like you know already. And our goal as African promotion, we want to reach out. We want to go out our way.
Dr. Bannister, please come back. You are not done yet on your section.
Sorry, Dr. Achade, you can continue.
Can I continue?
Yes, please.
Okay. So basically, we are working hard because, first of all, what I see and what we see, we are in 2022 today, and we have our brothers and sisters think the education is not important anymore. But it is important. It's very important to get educated. And when you get education, it's two kinds of education. It's not just going to school. We have to also respect our family, our culture. So we are working hard to make sure our kid and our family, we say a family because everybody is our family, to dress and follow the culture, wherever they are. Wherever we are, everybody have their own culture. But, the clothing, dressing, and the way we eat food, what kind of food we eat is very important. So we need to let them know that either go to school and get the other education, or you have to get the home education. With respect to your elders, we have that in Africa, and that's what we share. And we make sure that there is no much difference between colonial mentality and brainwash. So as the African come from Africa, we come to the different world, Europe of here, and we think we're different. We're not different. We're all same. So what we do is to work together more, stick together. But when you are together, when you're working together, you're strong. So it's not easy for people like me speaking of French and come to the world speaking English and speaking different languages, speak about 4 or 5 different languages. But for me, I think it's a gift, because when my mom was forcing me to learn different language and learn different culture, I was thinking she's doing something very bad. But today, I can dance, I can play music, I can teach culture everywhere I go. So it's a gift. for me. What about those people who don't have that? Those people don't have those kind of chance, those kind of luck. We have to, this is why what the doctor is doing, that is doing is very, very powerful, because some people don't have what I have. Some people don't have the opportunity. Some people don't have chance. Some people don't have mother and father. And those people have become our kids now. And it's our duty to put them, to put what we do today together. And the African culture, what is very hard on us. It's not easy because some people don't understand, because the colonialism basically destroyed some people that understand that our culture is not counted. It's not counted. In 2022 today, we see some kids don't know the difference between God, this religion, this religion. And African culture have to make sure teaching people to know that everybody have to be respected. Everybody have to respect whatever they do. It doesn't matter what religion you come from, or the culture that you have to put it together. So it's just the beginning. And now we in Africa right now, we are extending the office. We have an office now in Benin that I'm in charge there. We have an office of African cultural promotion in Benin that creating and calling people of that different part of Africa to invite them home, invite them to Africa, because we have to start doing things as for example, the Jewish people. We have to know that any Black people, anywhere they are, they get the plane ticket, they go into Africa, they know they're going home. So that office we have it there, is like hotel, have 9 rooms. We have some different part of people who are reaching, who welcome, either Ghana or Togo, are very, very happy to welcome all the Black people, wherever they're coming from, to come to Africa. And to make the last point, I want everybody to know that today African promotion culture put food together in Benin, and our organization have office in Benin that anybody going to Benin, for example, he already have a information of orientation, place to stay and get information and want to know about Africa. And some part of Africa also are ready to give the citizenship for those African or abroad, like America and Europe, to come back home, that Africa is our home. So African culture are doing everything they can do to anywhere you are feel home. Thank you very much. May God bless Africa. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Everywhere you are, you feel at home, right? Amazing. Thank you so much for that, Doctor. And then up next, we have His Royal Highness, Prince Dr. Osita Animeka, Chairman and Governing Council for Together Global and President, Sub-Saharan African Open University, Africa. You have the floor. Your microphone is still muted.
Dr. Dennis, please come back on camera, please.
There we go.
Thank you so much, Tanisha. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Your Royal Highnesses, Your Excellencies, esteemed colleagues, panelists, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. My name is Osita Animeka, and I welcome you to this YOUTHGETHER Global event in commemoration of the 2022 United Nations ECOSOC Youth Forum. As an initiative for gathering, global youth, the YOUTHGETHER Global Program is deploying the 4 cardinal mandates of empowerment, exchange, education, and entrepreneurship for bringing global youth together for the 2030 decade of action. By empowerment, we're deploying the inherent skills of the youth. Through exchange programs, we provide internship and apprenticeship opportunities. With education, we bring the youth to the pathway of lifelong learning through entrepreneurship. And we're also helping the youth to discover new ways for combining resources and generating market value in the process. YOUTHGETHER Global is driving entrepreneurial and leadership capabilities amongst global youth while harnessing the innovation and creative genius of this population in all countries of the world. At YOUTHGETHER Global, we know that today there is a greater need to create greater levels of entrepreneurial flair amongst the youth and to enable them to thrive in today's volatile environments. YOUTHGETHER Global is assuring our youth and assisting them to build the capacity to systematically challenge assumptions at their levels and to identify and harness hidden opportunities to generate alternative approaches in each country. YOUTHGETHER Global has become that institution with the capacity and capability for STEM-centric vocational skills, for empowerment and entrepreneurship programs that bring the latest research and collective global experience and years of excellence to the drawing board. YOUTHGETHER Global is supporting a wholesome learning and earning journey to create an environment where youth entrepreneurialism will flourish, thus providing the right set of processes to generate sustainable growth for the journey to 2030. So, what's the rationale for what we do? YOUTHGETHER Global believes that competencies required for entrepreneurship and leadership are acquired through capacity development and deployment. We believe that economic and leadership development require bringing forth latent talents and nurturing strong achieving spirits amongst the youth. We also know that the need for achievement motivates young people to exploit and then take advantage of opportunities. We know that motivation comes through planned capacity development trajectory and activities. We also believe that education and entrepreneurial development programs help potential young people to set up, to own, and appropriate their abilities for entrepreneurship. We believe that entrepreneurial development and empowerment are organized and a continuous process, so we don't rest on our oars. We also know that basic opportunity and purpose of entrepreneurial program is to influence the young people and motivate them to take up entrepreneurship as their careers. So, YOUTHGETHER Global is not just involved in capacity development trajectory, but also involved in the process of one, enhancing the motivation and knowledge skills of our youth, reforming and leading them to take up entrepreneurship in their day-to-day activities, and then encouraging them to lead and sustain and own their own dreams. Now you ask, what are our intentions? I mean, we have been doing this since 2020. We want to motivate the young people to become job creators and not job seekers. We want to influence them to take up entrepreneurship as careers. We want to enable young people in all countries of the world to acquire leadership qualities and help them to identify and exploit business opportunities. We want to enable them also to analyze the viability of their ideas and their dreams and turn them into opportunities for making the millions that they will need for the future. We want to enable the youth to try and acquire technical and managerial skills, help them to identify the pros and cons of entrepreneurship and leadership skills, assist them to understand startup processes, and link them with institutions globally for startup capital. We also bring development to our different countries through employment creation from our youths. So what's our journey so far? We've been training them through talent pooling and pooling. We're leading them through leadership building and breakthrough. We're addressing the traits of entrepreneurs. We're addressing the reasons why entrepreneurs fail. We're also following the stages of enterprise life cycle. And we're ascertaining the need and the opportunities for planning and plotting for the future. So since 2020, YOUTHGETHER Global has established national programs in 20 countries in Africa, Europe, North America, and Asia. We have insisted on well-designed and well-run country development programs for youth, and we're promoting country youth leadership by involving youth in their needs assessment, youth in their own planning, and youth in their implementation and evaluation processes. Our country coordinators have helped to install youth teams, and we are looking forward to the next 8 years of growing more country programs while working towards the year 2030 with excitement and acceleration. Thank you.
Thank you. Very exciting indeed. Very exciting indeed. I think that was an amazing opening from the first three speakers. really, really key points there. Of course, you know, we can't get away from that quote about education being expensive and trying out ignorance. But I think a really, really good point was also made by Dr. Tachi in terms of saying, you know, it's important to make sure that there is no big difference between colonial education and the home education that's provided. And I think that's really looped in very, very well with your discussion on entrepreneurship and leadership skills and the development of those leadership skills and entrepreneurial skills. So thank you very, very much for those contributions. Much appreciated by myself and I'm sure the audience. I can see a lot of typing has been happening while you were all speaking. So if we shall, we'll just move into the next discussion, which is a call to the 2022 ECOSOC Youth Forum with Dr.
I think there are some questions for this section on the chat.
Would you like us to do those questions now?
Yeah, for this particular section.
Okay, perfect. So where would that be? As said, education begins at home. What then happens to those children that have lost family members or family links due to the war and are roaming the streets without any help? The conflict has increased the number of children roaming the streets. The children are deprived of the basic human and child rights. What is the way forward then? Does anyone, have any of the speakers got any? I think this would fit well for Ambassador Dr. Devon Bannister, because you were talking about providing education to those who need it, but are underprivileged and therefore do not have access to it.
Yes.
What do you think are routes which we should provide them?
So, like I'd indicated, the best way forward for instances like that is, like I said, we usually reach out to local businesses as well as other organizations and schools as well, to let them know that, well, hey, this is the situation currently at hand that some families are facing. Again, it goes back to, like I said, having resources, someone having the resources while someone have the idea. I could only fund your idea because I have the resources for it. That means you need access into education. So for a family of such sort, then the best way forward for that is where the organizations are partnering together. They extend that hand to say to you that, well, okay, we will assist you in this way where you can be able to gain the education that you need. And that comes through the various organizations working together. So by organizations working together, partnering together, that gap that bridge can be built to fill that gap.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I mean, in the United Kingdom, I used to work a lot with young people that had been in prison, and it was quite similar things. You know, they'd be released from prison, put into good-ish care homes, but of course, they'd always find their ways back to the streets. And so it is about collaboration. It is about everyone that's engaging with those young people working together to ensure that they're constantly being signposted towards things that are beneficial to them.
There's one organization that I can put out there. There's one organization, the name of the organization is ASLP, After Schools Lesson Plans. But what they do is you have people who, for instance, I've just transferred someone to them from India. The person has a doctorate in mathematics, used to teach at the university, moved to the United States here, and don't know what to do, don't know what kind of job. The person ends up working at McDonald's. Imagine you have a doctorate and working at McDonald's, but back in your home country, you're a professor, a lecturer at the university. So just by connecting that person to that organization now was able to help that individual. So that again is why I say you need that access needs to be built, that bridge needs to be built, whereby you can be able to partner or direct someone to an organization. So even if I can't deal with them directly myself, I have organizations I can send them to.
Understood. Perfect. Thank you for that. I hope that answers the question. I do believe that to be correct. Does anyone else would anyone else like to contribute to that response? No? Okay, perfect. So I'm not seeing any more questions. I'm just seeing a lot extremely close to my heart. I find, I have a saying, entrepreneurship is a journey to self-discovery. Because what we find is that through entrepreneurship, a lot of the gaps we have in our learning really are highlighted. Very similarly to what Dr. Devin mentioned earlier about his teacher explaining to him how maths and science are all involved in music. Entrepreneurship really brings to the forefront, you know, those leadership skills, communication skills, emotional intelligence, patience, timing of the approach, sales, and really quite a lot of skill sets that allow project-based learning and allow the opportunity for young people to really grow and develop. Okay, well, thank you for that. I think those are all the questions that we have. Again, thank you very much for those contributions. So up next,
there's a question on LGBTQ. Did you ask that?
Where was that?
It says, I see LGBTQ representation on the registration flyer. Is this signposting inclusion in the movement? Is there going to be revision on SDGs to explicitly include the underserved and underrepresented communities like the LGBTQ?
Okay, well, I guess this question isn't directed at any of these panelists. So Dr. Adan, would you like to answer that question?
No, I thought it's for the panelists.
Well, I don't think it is. I think this is in general to the representation on the flyer of the event for this ECOSOC Youth Forum.
Go ahead. I don't know about that.
But would anyone else like to contribute to that? Because I think that the design of the flyer wasn't really in our hands. I've just seen it now, 1211 from Kudzai. But if anyone would like to contribute to that, if anyone feels that they are best placed to respond, I think that'd be great. However, Kudzai, I don't think the design of the flyer was done by any of us. We are hosting a side event. But as with everything, there's always a goal for inclusivity. It's underlying in the objectives and all the SDGs and everything. And so I imagine that has been looked into, especially if the representation has been put on the flyer. But I'd like to move into the next set of questions just before we run out of time. So Dr. Anne-Marie, I think I've called you a few times, so you must be really ready now.
I'm really ready. So
Yes,
thank you for that. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to be with us today. I want to thank the Economic and Social Council Youth Forum and all the other organizers and participants of this event for inviting me to speak with you today. When I last spoke, our topic was the integral role that education must play in leading the world on its road to recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. And though near and dear to my heart, the topic was academic, factual, research-driven. This time, our focus is on the young and what we must do for them and what they can do for themselves to ensure a vital and sustainable future. This time, for me, it's personal. Give me just a moment here. And I seem to have lost my screen. 1 second. Go. I'm hoping that screen is sharing at this point. The COVID-19 pandemic has disrupted the lives of every family, every community, and every country worldwide. When we consider age as a factor in the effects of COVID-19, the young are sometimes overlooked. We believe they are resilient. They don't really understand. They're sheltered from the reality by the adults who care about them. And this could not be further from the truth. I've experienced it firsthand. My daughter, Brooke, is 15. She was in the 8th grade when the world shut down, shattering everything she thought she knew about herself, her life, and the little world she lived in. Pre-pandemic, Brooke was always surrounded by friends, loved venturing out to cultural events, wanted to always be the center of attention, was a little goofy and a bit of a ham. Pre-pandemic, Brooke wanted to try everything and excelled at most things that she tried. She was full of energy and optimism. In short, she embraced every moment of life. Here she is now, lost angry, depressed, anxious. And she was lucky. Her school transitioned to a virtual format within a week's time. We opened our pool so that she could practice swimming. Both my husband and I continued to work. He left the house. I worked from home, so she always had guidance and supervision. We cooked, we binge watched television, we walked, tanned, played board games, rode our bikes. One of her friends even lived with us for a little while, so she had the company of a peer. And then we got a pandemic pup. However, even with all that, Brooke ended up a shell of her former self. Many children who did not have this comparative good fortune suffered far greater consequences. For the young as a whole, growing up in lockdown translated to devastating mental effects, which we must promptly address and help them to address if our future is to be productive and sustainable. In December of 2021, the U.S. Surgeon General issued an advisory on protecting the mental health of our young based on findings of the CDC and the OECD. The CDC reports that before the pandemic, up to 1 in 5 children between the ages of 3 and 17 were experiencing mental, emotional, developmental, or behavioral difficulties. During the early stages of the pandemic, this number increased to 1 in 3. The OECD similarly reports that the number of 15 to 24-year-olds worldwide are experiencing mental health issues. That number has doubled, with the number of those impacted as much as 80% higher than they are in the general population. There is no disputing that confinement-related stress, financial insecurity, and the impact of the disease itself, the questions regarding an uncertain future disrupted the lives of individuals on a global scale. However, the young seem to have been uniquely affected by both youth-specific and universal factors. Statistics indicate that throughout the pandemic, there were nationwide school closures in 31 countries worldwide. Over 1.5 billion children were affected, not only by a loss of learning, but also by the refuge that schools provide, an escape from family drama, the protection of daily routines, social activities, physical exercise, and a sense of community and belonging. The erosion of these benefits led to an enormous amount of stress on both children and their parents. There are tremendous psychological impacts which resulted from the social distancing and quarantine measures necessitated by the pandemic. Young people, perhaps more than any other age group, need both their peers and their mentors as they develop socially and emotionally. The shutdown severely limited social interaction and emotional support, causing increased levels of stress and feelings of anxiety and loneliness already common in this age group. Limited access to mental health professionals and those who provide referrals was also detrimental to the well-being of young people. According to a 2020 WHO survey, in more than 75% of the world's countries, mental health programs targeting children and adolescents were completely or partially disrupted. And then there was the problem of identification. Schools serve as a primary point of access to mental health services, and teachers are frequently the identifiers of early symptoms of mental health issues. Without access to these, young people were truly disadvantaged. Both the healthcare and social systems were overloaded during the pandemic when the demand was exceptionally high and supremely critical. And although young people themselves were at far less risk of developing severe physical symptoms to COVID-19, their fears and their anxieties connected to parents, grandparents, and other trusted adults. The lack of access to healthcare and social services heightened these fears as illness struck more and more people. According to the OECD study, 35% of young people are employed in low-paying or insecure jobs, the jobs that were most impacted by the pandemic. Therefore, the young were far more likely to lose their jobs than any other group. New entrants to the workforce found it far more difficult to secure entry-level positions than ever before. Internships, apprenticeships, temp work, other training pathways that had previously helped them connect to the job market had been suspended, making the pressure on young people to try to make the school transition even greater. With all these stressors present in our daily life, it should come as no surprise that both domestic violence and cyberbullying both rose during the pandemic. Children and adolescents, now constantly at home in tense situations, were far greater at risk of being exposed to domestic violence than at pre-pandemic times. The OECD reports that that inquiries to violence prevention hotlines have risen more than 5 times their normal rate. And the WHO reports that calls reporting domestic violence against children have increased 60% from pre-pandemic years. This frustration and anger often led adolescents to act out and to direct their aggression towards their peers. And this is indicated by the increase in incidents of cyberbullying also seen during the pandemic. Finally, the young are far more likely to use social media as a source of information. The 2020 study indicated that approximately 80% of the misinformation related to the pandemic streamed through social media outlets. As such, the young were more likely to be exposed to this misinformation, which both heightened their fears and caused distrust of those who were supposed to be in charge. The stress and anxiety caused by these feelings certainly impacted their mental health. And though all youths experienced these effects to one degree or another, some felt it with far greater force. Sadly, but not surprisingly, the impact of the pandemic was found to be greater on young people who were already vulnerable to begin with. Those with underlying personal factors, such as physical, learning, emotional disabilities, pre-existing medical or psychological conditions, substance abuse disorders, or involvement with child welfare or the legal system, are disproportionately affected. Social factors, such as being a minority, coming from a lower socioeconomic family or community, being an immigrant, or living in a rural area, have also been found to increase the severity of impact. Finally, gender issues, such as being female or being a member of the LGBTQ community, also increases the risk of developing psychological issues. And perhaps this all seems very bleak, especially for a Monday morning, or at least a Monday morning for me. However, there is hope, but we must act now, and we must act fast. Surgeon General Murthy states the future well-being of our country depends on how we support and invest in the next generation. We must begin to effectuate change in the overall structure of education, healthcare, and workforce development to ensure that the future is one in which we want our children to live. We must also provide our young people with coping mechanisms and the power to continue to effectuate change for positive results. We must recognize that mental health is just as essential as physical health to the well-being of any individual. We must empower youth and their families to recognize, manage, and learn from difficult emotions. We must support students to remain in school and develop comprehensive policies to assist us in this endeavor. We must include school-based mental health services and mental health training for teachers. Additionally, curricular revisions should be put in place, which include the development of social and emotional skills, particularly emphasizing resilience building. We must take action to prevent a youth unemployment crisis by offering wage subsidies for entry-level jobs, creating apprenticeships to assist in the school-to-work transition, and investing in awareness programs and mental health training for higher level managers and executives. We must ensure that every child has access to high quality, affordable, and culturally competent healthcare. This can be accomplished through improving and subsidizing mental health hotlines, resourcing youth centers to offer support service, and developing one-off schemes such as free or reduced cost therapy sessions for young people. These efforts must be redoubled in providing practical advice and intervention guides for parents to support their children during recovery. We must create engagement opportunities to mobilize young people to assist in our recovery efforts. Dedicated programs and solidarity among peer groups will not only assist in return to pandemic conditions, but will also give young people a sense of ownership in their lives and their futures. We must address the economic and social barriers that contribute to poor mental health in young people. And finally, we must increase research to identify and respond to ever-changing youth mental health needs as we continue to emerge from the pandemic. In addition to the changes we effectuate in the world at large, we must also counsel and guide our young people so that they may begin to heal themselves and create a world which does not seem so weak, isolating, and hopeless. Simple though they may seem, the following are things we can encourage and foster in young people as we continue through the worldwide recovery, and probably even things that we as adults should practice ourselves. Do give yourself permission to struggle and fail. Mistakes are a part of life. When we learn from these mistakes, they become successes. Just because you fail at something doesn't mean you are a failure. Challenge yourself. Self-esteem grows as you continue to succeed. The more you challenge, the more challenges you face, the more challenges you will overcome. The more challenges you overcome, the more powerful your self-esteem. Know that you are worthwhile. Embrace the positive, release the negative. We are all valuable, productive, and special. Own those things yourself. Find your happiness. Ask yourself what that is, and then figure out how to get it. Acknowledge what you accomplish, no matter how small. Praise yourself, celebrate what you do, collect the positive, and release the negative. Don't compare yourself to others. We are all unique. Just as our weaknesses vary, so too do our strengths. Don't worry about what others think. It's okay to wonder, but not to worry. The most important opinion of you is your own. If you don't like something about yourself, it's okay to work to change it. Just don't do it for somebody else. Don't set unattainable goals. Being able to reach our goals can be not being able to reach our goals can be psychologically damaging. Taking smaller steps towards a bigger goal allows us to feel accomplished on a regular basis. Don't set yourself up for failure or disappointment by taking on too much at one time. Don't blame yourself. We often confuse blame and responsibility. Blame is a negative, responsibility is positive. Don't engage in I'm not good enough or I'm a bad person. Instead, try I can make this right or I can do it better next time. That's taking responsibility. And remember, you are only responsible for your behavior, not the behavior or the reactions of others. Finally, healing cannot be accomplished without taking the time to do something good for ourselves each and every day. So have some fun, whatever that means to you. Do some exercise, binge watch a series, take a bath, socialize with friends. Treat yourself to something special. Do your nails, have an extra cookie, watch one more show, or sleep a little late as a reward for what you accomplished that day. Forgive yourself for what you didn't accomplish. Remember, you can take responsibility without placing blame. Do something good for your body. Drink water, eat healthy, get some exercise. Do something good for your mind. Read a book, do a puzzle, play a word game, visit a museum, research something that interests you. Help someone else. Research shows that helping someone else can help us feel good about ourselves. It's a win-win. And talk to somebody about your day, both the good and the bad. Let them help you celebrate your successes and release the negativity you're holding on to. Franklin Roosevelt said, we cannot always build the future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future. We must attempt to make educational, workforce, and healthcare changes which will alleviate the devastating emotional, psychological, and social impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic to provide our children with a future of hope and happiness. However, the most important and significant change we can make is to teach them to act on their own behalf and provide them with the tools necessary to create a resilient and sustainable future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I can see that quite a lot of people in here felt that the information really resonated with them. So there's quite a lot of positive responses to your talk in the chat box. Please do take an opportunity to have a look when you get some time. Just trying to look to see if there are any questions. Dr. Adar, do we know if we're going to go to David next, or are we going to go on to Dexter?
Please go ahead. I'm trying to track David.
Okay, perfect.
Yes,
All
yeah,
right.
this is Sita. Yes, please just go ahead. I'll let you know when he's here.
Thank you so much. Okay, so thank you so much for those contributions, Dr. Anne-Marie. Really, really interesting, really, really important. In fact, my son is about 20, and I was saying to someone the other day, it's quite interesting that I had to explain to him that, you know, for me, every day is a new day owning someone like him, right? Because they also seem to think we know what we're
Yes,
doing.
sir.
We don't have a clue what we're doing. So it's just very interesting when I was reading your presentation, because I guess it just showed, it was a good reminder to me that yes, of course, the well-being of young people is really important, but also the well-being of those around them, because we do end up doing a lot of self-soothing, which of course we know doesn't necessarily always lead a good way, in order to stop them from self-soothing. So someone will eventually self-soothe, right? And that's where that therapy relationship comes in. So thank you very much. I personally took quite a lot of that on myself. Like, you know, you're doing a great job. You did a great job, Mum Tanisha. So thank you. And you are clearly also doing a great job, Anne-Marie. So thank you so much for bringing that personal story to share with us in order to help us contextualize your information. Much appreciated. Okay, so next we have Dexter Todd. So Dexter Todd is a UN representative and with the Irene Menakaya School in Geneva, and this discussion be on empowerment resources and youth for sustainable future. You have the floor.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It is definitely a pleasure to be with you this morning. For those who are observing this forum from around the world, it is a pleasure to have you. To all the most esteemed panelists today, I have been enjoying every presentation so far. I do count this a profound pleasure to have had the opportunity to be invited and to share this morning. Today, it gives me a profound pleasure to address you on a very important topic. And I believe it's important because whenever we talk about empowerment and we talk about sustainable future of our young people, it becomes something that I'm very passionate about. Young people, you have an enormous stake in the present and future of the earth. It has been established through statistical data that almost half of the human population in the world is under the age of 25. In the year 2017, the United Nations itself, in its world population prospects, accounted that young people aged 15 to 25 years amount to the sum of 1.2 billion. I would suppose in 2022, that number is higher. Your voice and contribution are both critical to the survival and continued development of our world. Governments around the world and partners must be admonished to see the vital role young people can play in the sustainability of the future and or development. A warning must be sounded that wherever young people are allowed to use their energy, time, and knowledge towards a misdirection into violence, terrorism, socially isolating technologies, and unsustainable consumption, where these are allowed to occur, our civilization becomes at risk to a high degree of destabilization. Many presenters who have gone before have all posited that there is a powerful opportunity for societies around the world to develop if young people can participate positively in all aspects of sustainable development. In order to achieve a sustainable future, I wish to restrict my presentation for the unwavering need for education, political support, equal distribution of resources, and hope. One of my favorite quotes from Nelson Mandela is that education is the most powerful weapon which one can use to change the world. I believe he further said, and this has been applauded by many around the world, that education's purpose is to replace an empty mind with an open one, unquote. It is through education initiatives that we must allow our young people to promote and to transcend and to transform themselves into a sphere of sustainability. In many of the written constitutions around the world that I have reviewed, it is a fundamental right of which one should receive education. The right to education is also a universal right. No one must be denied an education based on sex, race, gender, disability, social status, which are just to name a few. As a Guyanese national, I grew up in a single parent household. My mother had no formal education. There were 7 of us in the household, and I was the second to last of them. None of my older siblings had a proper formal education. But as a little child, I recognized that one of the things that keeps us in poverty around the world is that of a lack of education. And I thought to myself, if I was going to break barriers, and if I was going to bring myself out from a stage of poverty, then I needed a sound education. My environment in which I grew up, there was very little or no example that I can look at to determine that I must be better. There were other families that I saw, but they were so much concentrating on their own family, and there was very little sharing and very little coaching. I have said that to say, sometimes, young people, you have to find a place in yourself to encourage yourself and to motivate yourself. Use what you observe, what you see happening in your environment to bring you that strength that will empower you to be the change that you want to see. Who would have thought that today, growing up in that environment, that I would have been able to accomplish all that I have been accomplishing over the many years? It takes a decision which must be unwavering. It takes a decision which must be focused. It takes a decision that must be driven by one's ability to see change. The point I am making here is that you cannot allow yourself to stop dreaming. It's like Les Brown said, and I quote, "Once you have dared to dream, I believe you must pursue that dream. If you do not pursue your dreams, it will consume you. The knowledge that you have had in your dream will be not pursuing, and it will kill the knowledge. Consider it absolutely necessary to go after your dreams, unquote. Very vital and very important. Education, and as we have seen around the world, and as we have heard so far from all the panelists here, have identified the importance of education. Now, due to the COVID pandemic, we have seen a number of changes in the world. And this is where I want to be able to move a discussion further to say that it is the ideal time that we must look at what has happened over the past 2 years, and we must find somewhere to learn and to move forward. What are the learnings that can come out? Is one, that education, while it was displaced and many schools were shut down, many persons found innovative ways in which to continue education. We have seen and the outburst of society coming together and helping. We have seen while there were no going to schools, we have seen that persons have come out of their communities and have decided that they were going to form little groups and that they were going to teach and they were going to encourage online learning. We have seen the sharing of internet and all sorts of things in some of the developing countries, especially in the Caribbean. What else can we do in a time of promoting education? It has taught us a very key lesson, and that lesson is that we must encourage our young people to look and to do research in areas that one might have thought were not that important. For instance, it might be a very good time for us to drive that our societies and our young people must go back to the lands and go back to the earth and go back to farming and encourage farming. Fruit production seems to be something that has taken on a significant importance in our world. It is time for us to embrace being more educated in that field. It is time for us to embrace in terms of using various technologies that can advance a very good educational status. We must study our fields carefully. We must not only think, and this pandemic has taught us, and if we are going to have a sustainable future, we must not, as young people, think of being employees only, but it is time to think about becoming employers yourself. Dream bigger. Dream bigger. It is time to see all those areas that are weak in your country, that are in need of some form of intervention in your various countries, and to begin to start up small businesses and become so much engraft in being a supplier. It is time that we look to see how best we can use technology to embrace this new dimension in which we have been plunged into, and how we can maximize that. Do not make studying in a field only for a national good. But if we are going to have a sustainable future for our young people, we have to begin to look into areas of studies that makes us marketable internationally. You cannot think nationally only, but our world is becoming more and more of one global space. And therefore, it is absolutely necessary that the call be made that we make ourselves more marketable for that. It is important that as we look at some of the lessons that we have learned and that we can begin to push, is networking. It will be very interesting to recognize that many of the problems that we face in an underdeveloped country are some of the same problems and similar problems that others face in other countries. It is about time to stop thinking that it's only you alone, but to see that there are others who are experiencing difficulties in other countries and how they're dealing with it. So there is a call for networking. There is a call for developing a passion for ongoing research. We cannot become and think that the learnings of the old, of the 19th century and early 20th century are sufficient enough to take us further into another generation. It is about time that we revisit areas of studies that have been of interest to many of you young people around the world, and to see where you can add your input, to see where you can add your voice. Be prepared to motivate others. Be prepared to motivate others, because it is through this form of motivation and sharing that we become more empowered and more sure of ourselves as an individual in terms of our future. It is important that we also have the political support. I grew up in a society where many people believe that you have to be at a certain age before you become involved in the decision-making machinery of your country. It's no longer the case. We have seen throughout the world that there are many youthful governments, and there are many youthful areas in which persons are getting themselves involved. But there must be some form of political support by governments for our young people. There must be also equal distribution in relation to resources. And we must encourage and call on our leaders to ensure that the resources are distributed equally and they are able to reach to those in those areas that, of course, are not privileged. Lastly, there must be hope. There must be hope for the future. There must be hope in yourself and in your ability, and that you can do better and that you can make a brighter future, of course, by remaining focused. I want to end with this last saying of Les Brown. Shoot for the moon, and if you miss, you shall be among the stars. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for those points. Again, really bringing home that point of entrepreneurship and education and where it meets. Really interesting statistics as well there, I found. The percentage of young people under 25 and things like that makes me very nervous. Okay, so before we go into comments and questions, it would be amazing to please hear from you, Queen Zainab Idris, Team Lead for Youth, Girls and Women Empowerment Accra, Ghana. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. Good day, everybody.
Hello.
I feel honored and humbled to be part of this important seminar, to contribute alongside these noble speakers. What wonderful, I've learned so much so far. And I'm sure it's towards achieving transformation. This invitation came in just last week for me to discuss or present the topic empowerment, resources and youth for sustainable future. I would first of all like to introduce myself. I am Queen Zainab Idris, a former banker and currently a business consultant, a trainer, an accomplished professional with a diverse set of experience. This is in business strategic management, administrative systems set up for SMEs, startups, and also existing businesses. Thus, I provide training in all the above, as well as in professional customers, client service. I help businesses to research to do research, do feasibility studies, and devise business plans. I assist organizations develop strategies, set goals, execute effective operational rhythms, and set up management system structure. With my knowledge and experience, and also the passion to impact in people's lives, starting from my community called the Zongo community, where Muslims predominantly settle, I mostly independently volunteer and sometimes work with local NGOs to provide training and mentorship to the youth, girls and women, in empowering them, providing skills development and capacity building. I also assist agribusiness people realize the importance of setting up offices to keep, and the importance to keep good records to help monitor the progress of their businesses. I also help them on how to add value to their produce. That's by grooming them, branding, packaging, and marketing strategies. That's with the aim to have better yields rather than the normal method of selling their produce in bulk. So I groom agripreneurs to gain confidence in presenting themselves professionally and how to market their product to be at par with their competitors and have presence in the market. So I am therefore here to connect with like-minded people to offer assistance by contributing towards this cause. I am ready to respond to questions on this agenda. However, I would like to just touch on one or two things that I've experienced during my engagement with the youth. Transformation can happen through agribusiness, agri-growth that will generate employment and income, which will create economic growth and development. This can happen through commitment to empower the youth to drive sustainable development goals, that's the SDGs. So one of the things that we could do is to provide the platform to share, provide platform to the youth to share ideas, to share the ideas and opinions, and bring out some of the challenges they are facing as part of the decision-making process. So the following are some of the few questions that came up during some of the meetings or discussions or training towards discovering what solutions, finding out the solutions to these problems. So some of the few questions I have, that comes up regularly is, how many non-farmers, that is in my community, in Africa, in Ghana or Accra, have succeeded or have a comfortable life through running agricultural businesses in Ghana? They have evidences to show Mr. ABC were unable to sustain their farming business. They are either underpaid or underappreciated and have since given up and either migrated from the rural areas to the cities or to abroad for greener pastures. The other question that came up is one of the challenges mentioned is the lack of access to farmland and other fundamental resources needed. For the past 15 years, a question came up to find out all the awareness raising advocacy conferences held towards empowering this youth and building their skills, providing knowledge and all that. What has been the progress or effect so far? And what is currently being done differently to create the passion for the youth to venture into agriculture and green growth business? From my experience, I feel the youth, per my experience, my personal experience, the youth are either not motivated, less interested, or have no trust in the agribusiness. So how do we get them involved? How do we change these internal representations? What support is needed to provide to them and for them to believe in what the results could become when the right processes and procedures are followed? So some of the solutions. I'm still trying to figure out, the right answers to some of these questions. But ordinarily, whenever we talk about helping the youth, the first key point is help. I have 3 key points. The first is help, the second is planning, and then the third is action. Usually when we talk about help, we think it's to have we quickly conclude that they need the resources, the farmlands, equipment, labor. But per my experience, personal experience and observation, and the research for over 10 years as a consultant to this youth, I have come to understand that the main help youth need, especially in my community, to get them engaged in the agribusiness is to enforce the green growth strategies begins in the mindsets. Many youth with whom I have personally engaged with are not mentally ready to even venture into the business, the agribusiness. And this rationale has not improved or changed to date. So farming is not classified mostly as an option, but rather the last choice on their list. It is only considered when everything else goes wrong, and everything else failed, then they just find themselves, that's the last option they have to try their hands on. So I asked myself, where have we gone wrong? Where did we go wrong? And how can we find out, and how can we get them prepared, the mindset prepared? So the next action to that question is to plan. What's the benefits, to let them understand the benefits of empowerment. Of course, the mindset comes first. Many of the Africans do not see, as I said, agriculture as business. So therefore they fail woefully within 2 years due to their inability to follow the proper farming procedures as a business. However, like any other businesses, one has to have an idea, plan, and prepare to implement, identify the choice of farming they would want to embark on and why. Sometimes we just want everybody to just be involved, to be part of it without, grooming them or psychologically setting them to make them understand that agriculture or farming business is just like any other business, which needs these procedures to be followed: the idea, the plan, to prepare and implement. They need to conduct market research. They need to assess the financing options, draft business plans, build the team, assess the time and labor needed, and all those processes that every other businesses do follow in order to be successful in future. Now the action is, in my humble opinion, even though support is needed from, of course, NGOs, individuals, governmental organizations, it's not only to discover great proposals. That's mostly what it's mostly done, to discover great proposals and then allocate funds. But the main important, per my experience, is to empower them and provide steadily support to ensure the business succeeds. To persuade or change the emotional objective and to make them actively participate, we need to present success stories as evidence to showcase that the agribusiness can be sustained, is sustainable. So what do we have to do? It's to ascertain what is missing that is making the farming industry not sustainable in our continent, in our communities, wherever we find ourselves. We need to empower the farmers with skills, knowledge, education, mentoring, capacity building, include them in the decision-making processes, implement the ideas, innovation, opinions. We've got to listen to them, allow them to contribute to the United Nations Youth Programs towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. We need to assure them and prepare to share our experiences, skills, privileges, and consistently work with them throughout the process. This will aid in making the world a better place for all. The youth are the future, and therefore it is our responsibility to assure them with actions and testimonies from accomplished agribusiness owners existing ones who were assisted, who have been assisted throughout the processes, going through the real processes in order to genuinely succeed. When we are able to tell them people have been in these businesses and have really succeeded, and we need to show really evidences. And we should also endeavor to use the solution of helping, planning, and action. This will give them hope and belief to entice and challenge themselves to continue to create transformation and become the real hope of the future. Thank you. I'm ready for any questions that might come out from this, my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Queen Zainab. That was a really, really useful submission. In fact, it's a really good point that you make. You know, I think historically speaking, it is quite common that young people do not yet see the value in things like agriculture, which does make that an ongoing battle for us. How do we make things that don't seem attractive more attractive, right? Because at the end of the day, if they don't enter at some point soon, then they will really be missing out on a huge revolution in terms of the changes, the way the agriculture sector is actually working at the moment. So thank you very much for that. I really appreciate that. Having a look into the chat area, it says, Queen Zainab, farming is relatively expensive. It requires capital. Do African youth have land, but no resources is the question, but I think it might also be, do they have the land? Do they have the resources? And how do we venture into farming? Even soilless farming, aquaponics, is expensive, and to get farming support in most African countries is a complete nightmare, especially when one is not affiliated with the ruling government. What is missing is the resources. There are a few other questions, but I just thought that was one that was quite, it covers quite a lot of the areas that people are talking about. What do you think the young people can do? Do you think it's a matter of the land or the resources, or more about the know-how in the first place so they can take advantage of it?
My experience, I know there are a lot of organizations that are willing, that are really ready to help with resources. I am emphasizing on the mindset. Very few youth are interested
Hello? Is it my connection? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Oh, so it's Queen Zainab's connection that's gone off.
It appears that.
Right, okay. Oh, that's unfortunate. Okay, all right, so we'll come back to that question. Okay, yes, her connection is absolutely gone. We'll come back to that question a little bit later and quite a few more of the others. Thank you very much for the submission of that question. And I think it is a very fair and valid point to be made. Around the world, there are different circumstances, you know, that either prove as success factors or barriers to entry when it comes to the agricultural sector. Kudzai Munyavi has just said, I'm assuming that's over in Zimbabwe because Kudzai is a Zimbabwean name. Our governments are giving 50 and 60-year-old youth grants to venture into farming. Oh, 50 and 60 year, I'm a bit confused. Is it 50, 60-year-olds or 50 to 60 year long youth grants to venture into farming? I'm personally sitting on a 43 acres of land in Zimbabwe and not farming because I have no resources. Well, I mean, that's an interesting discussion there. And I think that's a really good opportunity for community working and you know, and actually learning to collaborate and share. 43 acres of land would be a lot, even for a farmer who had a lot of resources. So I think there's a bit of, if I can just give my own opinion, a bit of biting off more than one can chew. And the best to do in a situation like that, especially in agriculture, is always to collaborate. Quite a lot of the most successful agricultural projects happening on the continent at the moment are involving a high level of really sophisticated types of collaboration, where people are able to come together to really get to the goal. And anyway, in big business, the best way to move forward is through collaboration. So I think for you with your 43 acres, collaboration is definitely the way to go. But I'm sure once Queen Zainab comes back, she'll be able to answer everyone else as well. So thank you so much for that. Right, let's move into the next area. We don't have much time left. Just to remind everyone that we do only have, the next set of speakers for the intervention for youth, that we have 8 minutes per speaker, please. And then once we move back into the solo speakers, we'll go back to 10 minutes per speaker. So I'd like to introduce our next speaker, which is, hold on a second. So sorry, just a second. I can't see her in the chat. I'm just wondering if she's here. Just a second, let me check something. Oh, there you are. Her Royal Highness Princess Chepi. There you are, I can see now. Perfect, so I'd like to invite you to the floor to take over the Youth Voices section.
Thank you so much, Tonisha Tangu. Am I saying it correctly?
Tego.
Thank you very much. Thank you for driving us so well. This ship is still going higher and higher, even though the ships don't go higher. But what I'm saying is that it's sailing very well. And thank you so much. I greet you all from South Africa. I greet all our Vice Chancellor, Madame Ada, and I greet His Royal Highness, Dr. Sita, and all the members of the council. I see Mary Kurek there, and everyone. I greet you all, ladies and gentlemen. It really is a privilege for us to be here. It is in the afternoon here in South Africa, and we will just go straight on. I see my team is ready. Hello, Ino.
Hello. Thank
you. And Amaka, thank you so much. You are looking lovely. Simeon Peters, thank you so much for being here. Lovely. What I've been hearing from all the speakers has been really, really, really of main points and of great concern. And yet they are also bringing in solutions because they have made our topic to be easier to navigate. Let us go straight on. Before we do that, there's a quote that I would love to quote from Stentola. He says, no, this is Howard Keller. If you stop learning today, you stop leading tomorrow. So it is all about that goal of education. I myself, everything that I do really is embedded on education. Through the organization that we have and through our initiatives here in South Africa, we have been focusing on those and helping our youth and our rural communities, because remember, in this year or decade of action, we are to leave nobody behind. So we then have established, even through Dr. Ada as well, the community classrooms. That also speaks to education, that it is not only at the higher learning or in the classroom, but this also was brought by the COVID-19 pandemic, when we saw that everything started coming to a halt. Because of that, that is not everybody who has access to online education. So it helped that we rethink and reinvent how we do things. Thank you. With those words, let us go on and let us hear from our Lady Amaka, just your introductory within the topic that we are talking about, the intervention for youth, so that we make sure that post-COVID-19, how do we achieve our initiatives so that they are sustainable, so that we have the sustainable future according to our objectives as the youth gathered.
Yes, thank you so much, Princess Shepi, for that wonderful introduction this morning. Hello, everyone. This has been such a wonderful topic of conversation that every year we put our heads together and think about ways in which we can promote youth empowerment in their own communities. And so much has been said today that I hope a lot of the young people who are in attendance are taking, and I hope their minds are working on ways that they themselves can affect their communities. So when we speak about the interventions for youth and communities, usually what we're speaking to are the youth that struggle with maybe relationships that have proven abusive, or there has been situations that has created hardship in their lives. And right now at this point, we can see that COVID has done that same thing, created that same effect for many youth across the world. It's really shaken up young people's ability to participate in things, to interact with their communities, and to receive support. So we typically look at preventive programs when we think about how can we support youth that are struggling in these areas. But since COVID-19 has been such a new development, there have been programs developed, yet they are still working on getting the data to see how much they have been supporting the youth in this arena. I want to talk to you today specifically about the Search Institute and their mission for providing young people with what they need to thrive in really any conditions of society. Their mission, the Search Institute, is really to work with organizations to conduct and apply research that promotes this positive youth development and also advances equity for youth no matter what their situation is. So I want to share with you a list of the 40 assets that they have highlighted that are needed to empower our youth to become contributing members of the community and to be personally invested in the well-being of their communities. So we can split these assets, these 40 assets. Half of them are external, meaning they come out from outside of the youth, and the other half are internal, meaning they are to be cultivated and developed within. So young people, as you listen to these assets, this 40 assets, I want you to think about how they show up in your own life, and also think about what it is you feel you need more support in or that you need more of. So let's start, as I said, with the external assets. These are the supports, they are opportunities and relationships that youth need across all aspects of their lives. So speaking on the thread of support, young people definitely need to be surrounded by people who love, care for them, appreciate, and accept them. So there are so many things underlying the growth phases, the developmental phases of adolescence and youth. A lot of it can be confusing, can be challenging to navigate, but when there are things like family support, or positive communication in the family, open communication, there are opportunities for the young person to seek advice or counsel from the adults in their life. Other adult relationships could be mentorship in the world of entrepreneurship or any type of industry that the youth might be interested in. And also having a caring neighborhood or a caring school climate can help tremendously with how youth are able to engage in their learning environments. Additionally, parent involvement has been proven to be something that has highly been successful in allowing students to thrive within their education. When parents are actively involved in helping their child or their youth succeed in school, it has tremendous outcomes. And another external asset we look at is empowerment. So young people need to feel valued and valuable, right? They need to feel that they have value. And this typically happens when a youth feels safe and they feel respected. So how does this look? This looks like the community itself valuing the youth, perceiving that, and the youth perceiving that value from the adults. So whether it's bringing them forth to provide opinions about things, helping them participate in focus groups or share their voice in many ways. Because, as we know, youth are resources. Youth are given, when they're given useful roles in the community, often they thrive and they do really well because they come with a very new perspective. Another way to empower youth is to point them in the direction of providing service to others. How can youth become more involved in things that they are interested in for maybe 1 hour per week, and just volunteer in that arena, whether it's to eradicate homelessness or houselessness, or to provide some companionship, maybe for elders in the community, or to help with cleanup projects. There's so many different ways that service to others can be carried forth by youth in the community. And another thing that falls under empowerment is safety, right? When a young person feels safe, not only in their home, but at school and in the neighborhood, this really gives them a lot of support to thrive in whatever it is they choose to do. And so let's also look at boundaries and expectations when we speak of external assets. Young people need clear rules of engagement, consistent consequences for breaking those rules, and encouragement to do their best, not to be perfect, but to try their best. And the reason this is so important is because oftentimes we may take this for granted that young people know or are clear of what needs to be done, or they are very clear about what happens when they don't do certain things or they break the rules. But there are times that we can see this, this type of expectation differs from scenario to scenario. For instance, there may be family boundaries or family expectations that differ from school boundaries or neighborhood boundaries. How do we model to youth that this is what is expected of them in these different spaces? Sometimes adult role models can play that part, so mentorship or having that support and another coach or adult can really play a part to set those foundational rules. Of course, having a positive peer influence, having groups of young people that model responsible behavior often trickles to their peers. Also, having high expectations for that youth. Of course, not expecting perfection, but always encouraging them and letting them know that you expect them to do well. You expect them to use their skills in a positive way, and you expect them to not break rules or fall victim to certain consequences, right? So when you have these boundaries and expectations for youth, they typically thrive in their environment. Another external asset would be a constructive use of time. This is something that a lot of people have learned to develop over the course of their lives. However, I think it is important that young people need opportunities outside of school to learn and develop new skills and interests that they can plan into their day-to-day, their week-to-week, month-to-month, and year-to-year. That way they are applying a constructive use of their time. So some things that fall in place with this are creative activities during the week. Let's say weekly lessons in music or theater or arts, which of course not everybody has access to, but there are opportunities to access creative activities within your community that are being provided. Also, youth programs, religious communities are a very big part of using your time constructively. Religious communities often have so many different events and they can always use volunteers. Also, spending time at home. I think often a lot of people take for granted the fact that when a child is out with their friends or youth is out with friends, those friends are typically shaping their use of their time and their use of kind of the skills being developed within that time. So maybe encouraging those times spent with family versus youth to be very few and far between. So spending time with friends, being very constructive as opposed to, well, I don't have anything to do, so I guess I'll hang with my friends, really encouraging them to be mindful of, okay, when you spend that time with friends 2 or 3 times a week, what do you plan to do? So that is just making constructive use of your time. And now we're going to move into internal assets. These are the things, the personal skills, the commitments and values that—
Hello, Amaka.
Yes.
Sorry, I've been trying to signal, my dear. We need to move to the others. Our time is very limited for our section. So
yes,
maybe you can give us just your final line, because I'm still having to engage you all so that we can get as much as possible. So maybe just the final line, and then we move to the others. Sorry about that, dear.
No problem. Thank you so much for the reminder, Princess Shafi. So our internal assets, I'm just going to list them off. There are 4 of them. So what we look at internally is, do you have a commitment to learning? Do you have a sense of the importance of learning and a belief in your own abilities? Do you have a sense of your own positive values that are driving you, that help you make healthy life choices? Do you have skills, social skills that help you interact effectively with other people, to make positive connections and also cope with new and changing situations? And lastly, we have positive identity as an internal asset. When you believe in your own self-worth and you feel that you have control over the things happening to you, you tend to develop a positive sense of identity and in turn empower yourself to show up powerfully in your community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for such powerful presentation. We will still be coming back to you. What I'm hearing here is about relationships, is about that self-mastery, is about helping them to be empowered so that that leader in them can come out shining. And then when they come, and to build that healthier young people or youth or community of youth, because then our future, we know that it is in the hands of much more healthier people, psychologically, mentally, and holistically. Thank you so much. Now let us move to Enos. That was Amaka Agule, from our Director of Programs at YOUTHGETHER Global. Now we will go to Enos Ilbers, who is our coordinator at the UK chapter. Thank you so much, sir. Just your introductory talk, and then, because we are still going to be engaging, so that we allow that question and answer, and we allow ourselves to really get so much to give to our youth, as to say, how do we do it here, the intervention that we're talking about here at YOUTHGETHER. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you, Princess, Miss Princess. It's my name is Enoy Bass. Good afternoon from the UK. To my fellow panelists, attendants, and a number of various organizations and listeners. It's an honor to be here speaking at this event and sharing my views on potential ways of building back better after the horrid situation of the COVID-19, which was catastrophic the world over. My inputs will be using the UN's youth strategies for 2030, their main priorities, which gives some evidence-based advocacies, policy engagements, partnerships, and program efforts with which they are trying to use to strengthen the international, regional, and national commitments, which then in turn engages and empowers young people. There's a leverage to both existing and forthcoming systems, system-wide initiatives, and using this, the UN can seek to step up its efforts in the following interconnected priorities. So the first priority given was the engagement, participation, and advocacy to amplify youth's voice for the promotion of a peaceful, just, and sustainable world. I think that we can all agree that while the world has changed dramatically, we are finding, and we have various tolerant pockets of demographics in the world. The concept of understanding each other and understanding each other and understanding each other's, excuse me. understanding each other's opinions and views is an important thing. This promotes free speech, which must also be extended to the youth. We must not allow youth to be an excuse to stifle the voices of those that are younger than us. They do have something to say in the end. The second priority is informed and healthy foundations. So we need to support young people's greater access to quality education and health services. This is important. And I would like to go further to say that education is the seed of innovation, as well as the first step to global development. The advocacy of the UN to provide this resource on a global scale will exponentially open new opportunities of innovation across borders, which can then lead to further collaboration and then change the world for the better. I know that we have spoken a lot on education here, but I would like to give in a personal view, which is we need to prioritize our education as well. We need to prioritize the knowledge types that we give. I found it an interesting concept that back in the day, when you were in secondary school or grade school, there was a major understanding of how banking works, of how money works, of how, and this is just one example, the principles of money and financial landscapes. Now we have to reach the tertiary level to be introduced to various financial instruments that are so complex and so convoluted that the average individual has no understanding of. This is a culture that I believe that we must change and or return to. We must also support mental health in our youth policy frameworks, along with the non-formal education. The third priority was the economic empowerment through decent works. So supporting young people's greater access to decent works and productive employment. And the world as a whole needs young people to be productive and create value through which we can all live a better, more fulfilling life. But it also needs to provide them with a decent pay. The world needs to come up with better frameworks to create decent pay to these young individuals, to incentivize them, to help their family members and their communities as a whole. Promoting access to these services and productive assets, such as land, financial instruments like capital, digital and other tech-related resources to youth who are navigating a modern and dynamic school-to-work environment should be lauded for this endeavor. Fourth, the youth and human rights. So we need to protect and promote the rights of young people and support their civic and political engagement, perhaps collaborating with the United Nations to protect these rights, create new policies and programming to safeguard these individuals. This demographic is also important, addressing widespread and grave human rights violations experienced by these young people from all the way, because it's not a situation, or it's not an issue that is central to one area of the world. From the Congo to presently the Ukraine, young people are suffering all over, and this is what they will grow up with. We need to show them that there is an alternative to this. It's also a worthy endeavor for the people, the world over to collaborate together and fix on. Excuse me. We can also collectively promote participation in political and public affairs, leveraging the capacities of the United Nations to promote young people's rights to participate in public affairs, including political and civic processes, platforms, creating platforms and institutions at all levels, such as elections, constitution-making processes, political parties, and parliaments. And the fifth and final priority is peace and resilience, which is pretty much focused on sustainability of these. When we do eventually come to these goals and meet these requirements, how do we keep it? How do we sustain these ambitions that we have now gained? And the fifth priority answers this through peace and resilience building, convening and buttressing partnerships to create local, national, regional, and global partnerships and collaborations between youth-led organizations, as well as through youth, peace, and security coalitions. Progress can be made in any degree for the achievement of peace and resilience, also by fostering continuous dialogues, establishing and supporting inclusive, representative, democratic, and structured dialogue and constitutional platforms. This priority can last for generations, using free speech as an important tool for the attainment of this priority, which will allow us to understand alternative sentiments and perhaps learn something new from others. I want to say thank you for giving me the time to speak, and I hope to get more questions and continue to converse with you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Those are very great points there from our YOUTHGETHER Global from the UK chapter, IBAS. So what I'm hearing is the financial intelligence to prioritize where we want to do the development of the youth pertaining to their knowledge and the skills, which then speaks to exactly as you have heard Prince Osita, as he was outlining what the objectives are. So it is still aligned, and you're speaking to that about leadership development, about mental health development, about financial intelligence. So thank you so much. We will zoom and now go to Mr. Simeon Peters.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, everyone. Okay, I want to sincerely appreciate ECOSOC and YOUTHGETHER Global for this opportunity. And I also want to recognize His Royal Highness, Dr. Osita, and then Her Excellency, Dr. Diana Kendi, and also recognize my fellow panelists and the other attendees. Thank you very much. So basically my topic says youth and exploring the potentials in building back better from COVID-19 and achieving their sustainable future, as well as intervention for youth in communities.
Is it me? Hello?
No, I think that would be Simeon's connection that's frozen because his image is also frozen.
Yes, while we are waiting for him to come back, I would like to engage both of you, Amaka and Enos. There has been a mention of technology, and we know that youth, they are very much attracted to technology. How can we leverage on that as YOUTHGETHER so that we have something tangible to take away and say, we know that the youth, they do that very easily with their eyes closed. I could not even change my background right now. And if I had a young person next to me, that would have happened by the click of the finger. And how can we maximize on this interest that we have of technology? Amaka, let's hear from you. 2 minutes.
Sure. So that is the amazing point, is that youth are very involved with technology. And it can be a double-edged sword because there is so much information out there right now. So youth pick and choose what they pay attention to. I think it is helpful when there are communities that are built specifically to support, when youth support each other, because there are communities that exist in that way that, whether it's private group chats that they've created with their friends or some club or organization they belong to. But one thing that really helps with connecting people is technology. So I think helping youth navigate those spaces in terms of this is what the space is for, this is what you can use it for, this is a safe space, creating that for youth on a technology platform would help tremendously. And those of you in the comments that identify as youth that we are talking about, you can also speak to the fact that whether or not technology is something that supports you, or whether or not technology could be supporting you in a different way. But that's one of the biggest things. Building communities through technology is a really powerful way of supporting each other.
Great, thank you. As we speak about technology with one of our members of YOUTHGETHER, I don't see him on the platform, Tsietsi has been able to use both his skills and knowledge and expertise as an actuarial scientist to teach the younger generation at the schools, teaching them maths and English, and then therefore also teaching the parents so that the parents are not finding it difficult to speak to the school books and to help them. So then we are seeing the community that is growing, the older generation and also the younger generation coming together. He used the technology also to build up this, the pot of funding where all people, we put funding in, and he brought in the solution of paying the school fees for the debts of the youth in universities. That has been tremendous. And we are seeing that success story of using the technology and using the skills where you are and bringing in this progress all at once. And that has been the success story from this chapter of South Africa, but it speaks to all of us. Let us go to you, Enos. How do we make technology and agriculture to meet and so that it is attractive to youth?
So the question is, how do we collaborate technology and agriculture?
Yes, because we want them to come. And
Okay.
We know that there is agriculture is how do we say, when you talk entrepreneurship, when you talk about the career of the now, no longer even tomorrow, it is really in the farming, in agriculture. So now we know that they have this skill, this interest or whatever. So how do we make those so that we make agriculture to be attractive to youth?
Okay, so I will use my personal experience because I'm coming from a sales background, and there's a very nuanced new sort of technology detailed on data science. And what data science does is that it allows you to collect various, not to be presumptuous, but just to explain, it allows you to collect various variables. For example, I'll use the example of a store clerk or an individual who owns a corner shop. He sells various produce. Let's say he sells apples, fruits, for example, apples, bananas, and grapes. So all of these are on a system on his computer. If he sells and he's selling them on a weekly basis, at the end of the month, he checks his inventory and still sees that he has sold in the month of February, for example, 20 times more apples than every other produce. He has used in this form, he has used the data he has collected from his customers who came in to buy items he can then use that information to rejig his business. So he can put in perhaps he can put in some kind of discount on apples to see if even more people would be willing to buy apples because of this information. And it all falls down to the foundation of understanding the data that you have, the data that you're collecting from your customers and how you utilize that. So imagine we have a farmer who sells various produce using the same principle, cassavas, yams, etc. We can use data now. We can use data collected over a month or a year to see what produce sells the most. It can alternate, of course, but we can use this information to sort of get an understanding of how we can then pivot our business, pivot our resources. Because if we know then that, okay, fine, more people in this area prefer yams, then we can pivot our resources to perhaps planting more yams so that to sell to more people and actually put that, provide this supply into the market. This is just one form of technology. I'm sure there are others, all the talks about artificial intelligence and video analytics. These technologies as well can come into play part. But just coming from my sales background, understanding how data and sales plays a part for you to better understand your segment, understand your customers, understand your environment, your business environment on a micro and macro level. the principle can be, I believe, can be shared on other platforms and environments as well.
All right. Thank you so much. I think that's what the topic was saying, that we be the voices of the youth. So to say that, what have we done practically to bring those interventions and even those that we are suggesting? I see Simeon Peters, you are back. Thank you so much. We recognize you. I see your hand is up. So we will take just the portion that we missed, but also I want to now to delve into already the discussion. So if you can give us in a few minutes that portion of your talk, and then so that I can follow up with your the questions.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so according to the UN, youths are being referred to as torchbearers of the 2030 agenda, and they have a pivotal role to play both as beneficiaries of actions and policies under the agenda and as partners and participants in the implementation. I'm just going to draw a little emphasis on the system of education, especially in Africa. And I strongly believe that both explicitly and implicitly, the 2030 agenda calls for the development and activation of sound evidence-based youth policies and actions to ensure its full realization. And the UN's youth strategy for the 2030 agenda can be achieved between now and the next 10 years, if we can just have a shift in mindset and perspective, especially in regards to the system of education that we have currently in Africa. For instance, growing up in Africa and attending schools, we found out that we were not trained to embrace problems. And this is what you find across the youth in Africa. And it boils down to the system of education that was implemented here, which is just basically formal. And we both know that, and we all know rather, that we have different systems of education. I've been able to study on the 8 kinds of education. And if we are going to create a system that would sustain the future of our generation, the youth, I'm talking about the youth, we have to diversify the systems of education that will be necessary in building and helping to discover, develop, and deploy the passions, the potentials, and the giftings of the youth. The system of education that we have, which emphasizes just on formal education, does not help in self-discovery. It doesn't. And it's so important. For instance, during the COVID, the educational system of the youth were halted. And we had lots of young people who were sitting at home just because schools were no longer functioning. And it's important that going forward, that we have to recognize that investing in youth is critical to achieving inclusive, equitable, and sustainable development for present and future generations. And that being said, we have to also build on the different types of education, right? We have linguistic education, logistic, mathematical, spatial, bodily, and musical, interpersonal. These are different types of education. And emphasis have not been laid on this type of education, basically in Africa for decades. And this is why we have a crop of youths who do not have a bearing as to developing themselves to solving problems. And we know that if we can help these youths to first of all discover themselves and then develop themselves, they would see problems and embrace problems. And I strongly believe that every single one of us have the potential, and if harnessed, will be tilted towards solving the global problems and also meeting the points of the SDG goals. So basically, the point I just really wanted to emphasize on. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. As we round up, we have got less than 10 minutes now. As we round up, we need to bring in solutions to these 3 questions that were being asked right at the beginning, as we were told about the objectives of today and the vision of what we want to achieve. So I will still dwell with you, Simeon, because we didn't give you much attention, so that you don't, we make what's good for the right hand, it must also apply on the left. It says, what are the best practices in providing solutions to challenges and taking action in realizing the SDGs priorities for youth across the world in committing to the decade of action? In just point 4.
Okay. Personally, for me, I think we need to come to a place where we create systems for transformation. You don't empower people whose mind have not been transformed. And it's one of the basic things I need us to do. We need to transform. Education alone does not transform the mind of the youth. Transformation, first, I have been able to outline 6 basic areas for transformation. And maybe because of time, I might not be able to mention the whole 6 areas, but relationship, purpose. The educational system does not target towards helping youth to discover their purpose. And if we can create a system that would help youth to discover their purpose, it will go a long way in solving the SDG goals. I've been able to study the 17 SDG targets, and these are problems. And from my own point of view, there are people with these solutions. There are people with the solutions to these problems. It's not just a problem of the United Nations. There are people who have these problems, the solutions to these problems within them. And if we can create a system, currently I have an organization that is already working with a system that helps youth in discovering, developing, and deploying their ideas, their passions, and their potentials, basically. And this is one of the areas we need to focus on in achieving the SDG goals. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Remember, we are the voices of the youth. This is the YOUTHGETHER different chapters, and we believe that you are our leading team. We've got Amaka Agule, who is our programs director sitting at the USA. Somebody is saying, please remind us of the topic. Our topic that we are addressing, let me remind you, ladies and gentlemen, we are saying intervention for youth in communities, youth voices, and we are all the Youth Gathered globally, the leading team or part of the leadership team. So that is why we say we are now bringing solutions that we can say, can we work together? Of course, we are not leaving behind that we are to work in partnerships. Enos Elbas. The third one is exploration of our potentials in building better post-COVID-19.
So,
what do you think the youth have that can be able to just build better? And we say, when we zoom in on these factors, we are sure to come closer to really getting the youth to where the direction where we want us to be.
So the main resource that the youth have is that question. What is the main resource that we have as youth to?
How can youth explore their potentials in building back?
How can the youth explore their potential? Collaboration and time. I believe those are the two main resources that the youth can have to build back better. Collaborating with like-minded individuals on specific goals, because people have different interests, but at the same time, different people still have the same interests, if that makes any sense. So if you can find people with who are interested in projects that you are interested in, you can create some sort of peer-to-peer partnership or collaboration to bring in capital and try to succeed in this goal. For example, this platform, for example, is a good example of this. We are all here together to communicate and find out better ways to provide collaboration and actually move the youth forward in different ways. And not only that, we have different ambitions or objectives, but we all share the same objective. We all share the same goal. We all share the same desire to meet these goals as well. So depending on what your project is or your goal is or your hopes for the future constitutes of, it's always best to find like-minded people, take the time, and then come to, eventually you will come to the right conclusion.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you. Mr. Simeon, you can bring down your hand, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Simeon, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, I can hear you.
Right. Amaka,
Yeah.
very, very briefly, so that we are able to maximize on the time that we have as well. What are the practical programs that we are suggesting, or what we say we have seen it working perhaps somewhere, that we can be able to say, if we take these can be the interventions that seemingly may work? Thank you.
So as I said, there are so many preventive interventions, and I think that depending on what that youth is particularly interested in, that prevention will be helpful. A lot of the preventions are specifically focused on helping youth that are in less ideal environments, that are struggling with mental health concerns or drug abuse or any type of abuse at all. So I think the focus should primarily be to help connect those youth in a succinct way so that they're able to choose which resources might be helpful. I would say one resources I'd like to offer today is NAMI.org. That's NAMI, N as in Nancy, A, M as in Mary, I.org. This is a very tremendous resource for mental health concerns, especially for youth, and for you to be able to see a list of things to navigate through what might spark your interest, what might be helpful. I implore you to explore that website.
Great. All right, thank you so much for the opportunity. So what I heard as we are wrapping up, thank you to my panelists, very powerful and very engaging, and my head is just spinning. If we had a whole hour, I would still be engaging you. So what I was hearing from Mr. Simeon is social intelligence, which is the other part when we speak about the EQ and the IQ, but this one has been left behind, which is the one where we are building, helping us to build on relationships. And then advocacy as well, advocacy, mentorship, and training. Last year around May, we attended a whole series of leadership as Youth Gather the whole month of May, which was quite helpful. And then we are talking about training and development so that we have a better youth, better community, better country, better globe, and even our future, we know that is going to be sustainable. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say thank you to all the participants for the opportunity as well. And I would like to close with this quote from Stan Toller. Who you know really is important, but what you know is the link that ties you to that person. Thank you so much.
Thank you, that's an amazing quote. And I think quite relevant actually in terms of what we were just saying, the discussion was just happening really. It is. Thank you so much. Not sure why I have an echo. Okay, great. So the next talk will be, on best practices in providing solutions to challenges and taking action in realizing the SDGs priorities for youth across the world. And we first will have Lady Priscilla Lupico, and I'd really like to be corrected on that as soon as you come onto the microphone.
No. You are missing two intervention speakers on the youth group, the adults.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay, so will I be leading this, or with Her Royal Highness be leading this? Should I chair this one? All right, so then in that case,
I'm continuing with the adults, the two adults.
I think so.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Dr. Diana Kinoli, Her Excellency Ambassador, the stage is yours, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Your Royal Highness Princess Shepi. Good morning from the East Coast here in the USA. Really blessed to be here with you all. Once again, Your Excellency, Dr. Ada, thank you for being so passionate about the youth and mobilizing us to always think about different ways to participate. It is an honor to be here. I acknowledge all of you, your excellencies, for being here, your royal highnesses, invited guests, all protocols observed. And I'm really happy about the session that was happening before I came on here, and really glad to see what is happening in the communication. Two things that I really liked was the aspect of collaboration. When we talk about youth and exploring their potential in building back better from COVID-19 and achieving their sustainable future, the conversation must always be intergenerational, representing every generation at the community, national, and global level, because we want to know what are the lessons that we have learned. We want to make sure that we are identifying the different opportunities yet to be maximized, and then building a vision to move forward. 2030 has put a demand on the need for developing leaders in every sphere of influence. And I'm going to share the 9 basic ones. This is not all of them, but the 9 basic ones, which are government, education, business, health, faith-based organizations, arts and culture, sports and entertainment, family, and media. And at YOUTHGETHER Global, we are working through empowerment, exchange, education, and entrepreneurship programs to enable our youth to maximize opportunities as they build back better their sustainable future. John Maxwell says that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. When we win, it's because we've had great leadership modeled before us. And when we are not winning, it is because there are different things that we need to adapt to and adjust within our leadership. And so we need to clarify in our definitions what leadership is and the potential to develop current and emerging leaders to extend and expand their influence in the 9 spheres of influence: government, education, business, health, faith-based organizations, arts and culture, sports and entertainment, family, and media. Brené Brown, in her book, Dare to Lead, defines a leader as anyone who takes responsibility for finding the potential in people and processes, and who has the courage to develop that potential. One of the questions before us today is, how can youth explore their potential in building back better and achieving their sustainable future? The reason we continue to ask this question is because the current education systems at all levels, for the most part, do not prepare, explore, or engage in the conversation of talent development when it comes to our youth. And we will continue to ask this as long as these education systems do not provide opportunities for our youth to begin to unlock how they are uniquely talented and how they're uniquely gifted to lead in every sphere of influence. And so a much better question that we can begin to ask is, how can we begin to engage our youth by sharing and providing them with the tools that will help them to identify how they're uniquely talented to serve their community, their nation, and the world? How can we cultivate environments that will provide our youth with opportunities to develop their talents and potential? In this age of information, we cannot afford the expensive cost that ignorance brings. And so building back better for the youth can look like looking for the tools and resources that are available. And I want to share 2 of them. One of them is the DISC personality assessment that you can find online, and the Gallup Strengths Finder. These 2 can help you to identify how you are uniquely talented. Number 2, please look to and determine the specific spheres of influence that you are uniquely gifted to serve the world in, whether it's government, whether it's education, whether it's business, whether it's health, whether it's faith-based organizations, whether it's arts, whether it is family, media, and or sports and entertainment. Whatever you're uniquely talented for is what the world needs, and how you are going to identify your value and what you bring to every situation and every opportunity that you get to participate in. And number 3, we want to ask you to put a demand on us. Let us make every effort to have intergenerational dialogue around leadership, impact, influence, and transformation. But most important of all, let us take the time to listen first, put a demand on ourselves to learn from what we're listening, and then look for opportunities to include our youth in leadership roles that will prepare them for the sustainable future that they need. Leadership is learned, and leadership is also practiced. So what are those opportunities that we are providing for them? And then let us begin to look at the word lead and ask ourselves, what are we learning about leadership and the way that we lead? And what are we experiencing from what we are learning? And then third of all, how are we applying what we are learning and what we are experiencing? And finally, how are we developing those around us based on what we are learning, what we are experiencing, and how we are applying leadership? Thank you. Over to you.
Yeah. Now I don't know whether is it me or is it Tanisha, but
Tanisha, please.
Tanisha, please, you can take over now, madam. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sorry, I was just having a read. There have been quite a few questions coming up.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if they were yours necessarily.
Can we go over to the last speaker before the questions, please?
Okay, sure.
Time is running, yes, please.
Okay, great. So thank you so much for those contributions. So now moving on to best practices in providing solutions to challenges. We have Lady Priscilla Pico, a broadcaster and director at Caris Media Works in the United Kingdom. Hi, could you please let me know, did I say your surname properly?
Hi, Tanisha. It should be Winkbo. So the N and the silent is silent. The N and the K are silent.
Right, thank you. I shall practice that whilst you people speak.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you all so much. Thank you. Thank you to the leadership of the Economic and Social Council Youth Forum, the Youth Together Global Youth Community Action for Sustainable Future, my fellow panelists, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I want to say good morning to you all, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are today. It's such a privilege to be here with you all and to not just to be in your company today, but to share on such an important subject with regards to our young people. We've heard so many great quotes today, and I'm going to try not to repeat a lot of what has been said. But my task today, I'm part of the group of people who have been tasked to speak on the best practice in providing solutions for the challenges and taking action on realizing the SDGs, the priorities for the youth across the globe. Forgive me, there's an echo. I don't know who it's coming from. This is a huge area to tackle, if I might say so. But then I'm going to try and start somewhere. It's been mentioned already, but according to the UN themselves, they say that we have about 1.8 billion people that are between the age of 10 and 24 that are classified as youth. Most of them are living in the developing countries. And with these young people, they're said to be the largest group within our societies across the globe, and the numbers are growing and expected to get bigger. With this number, they should be our priorities. They should be the priority of all our governments across the globe. But it is very interesting to note that the same issues or the same challenges that our youth are being plagued with today are challenges that, we have always heard of, and also from generations before. I'm just going to mention some of these challenges that, are out there. Some of these challenges that we hear of high unemployment, we hear about the crimes, we hear about alcohol use or drug abuse or poor education, teenage pregnancy, which I believe affects both sides, whether you're male or female, because it takes both parties to for that to happen. But then in our 21st century, in our world today, the other areas that are more prevalent are mental health and, of course, issues that have arisen from isolation. Isolation, of course, is something that we've seen so much more of in recent times as a result of the whole COVID situation. Now, these challenges are, as I've mentioned before, affected the generations before now. But what is interesting about this generation that we speak of today, of our young people, is that there has been some changes. We are seeing improvements in these areas. According to the YMCA in England and Wales, the young people of today are not as affected by these challenges in the same volume as the previous generation. Obviously, we can't say the same for across the globe because, depending on where they are situated, the impact is different. But our current generation of young people, and I'm really excited about this, are said to be less likely to do drugs. They're less likely to smoke or commit crimes as much as the previous generations did, which is great. It says a lot about where our society is at now. They are also said to be more academically qualified. There is also very much a low rate of the teenage pregnancies. So, this is a great plus. And we know that, as I've said already, it's not the same for everywhere, but it is encouraging to see and to note that it is happening, even if it's in some parts of the planet. So in spite of all of this growth that I speak of, that is happening, the challenges that are being created in our world now. When we speak of that, we need to look at our social landscape for the young people. What is the social landscape of today? We live in an age of information brought about by the internet. Excellent invention for our 21st century, we would say. And I think that we saw so much of that recently during this pandemic. For most of us who probably used the internet at 1%, we're all having to use it a whole lot more now, aren't we? We're using it, whether it's for work, whether it's for our educational purposes, whether it's for, medication, whatever it is, across the globe, there's more use of the internet, not just by our young people, but also by the older generation. What has it done for us? On one hand, it's brought us closer together. And I think that on the other hand, it's made us somewhat lazy. It's made the young people somewhat lazy. It's encouraged them now to live a life in a box, as I call it. Because this life in a box where they play games in the box, they watch their movies in a box, they interact with their friends in a box, they work through the box, the finest example of that is my daughter. She got a job during the pandemic and she worked the interview was online. She got the job online. She's been working online. Now, when you ask her, would you not want to work some days in the office and some days from home? She says, no, I want to work absolutely from home. So, it's this life of we're doing everything online, but by so doing, we're actually creating isolation without realizing that we're doing it. And, we're not seeing it straight away, but for some of our young people, it will cause some problems as we go forward. So, things have certainly changed. And our challenges have been expanded, I would say, for this generation more so. So I'm just going to focus now on just a few areas of these challenges. Now, when we speak of education, we have spoken a great deal about the need for education, the importance of education, and why we should have it. I would say, though, that in some parts of the world, especially on the African continent, some of our educational systems have not improved but suffered. It has depreciated instead. Yes, I did mention earlier that today's young people are more educated, and that strive for more education is across the board. But sadly, in some parts, it's not the availability of access or being able to have that education is not there, or the quality and standard of it. In some of the developed countries, believe it or not, education is still lacking, especially in the higher education realm. And, a lot of people are struggling to have access to that. I'm going to come back to that in a moment. Unemployment is also another issue. People are more educated, but then they are struggling to be able to find jobs after that. And these are the areas that they're challenging. And, we have also spoken about entrepreneurship and the need for that. And I do believe very strongly that as part of our education, we should be teaching people, our young people especially, more about how they can become entrepreneurs and the importance of entrepreneurship. But as we teach them about that, another class that I think is so important for all of us to learn as we're growing is the class of purpose, learning about our purpose and the importance of having a purpose. I'll come back to that in a moment. So despite, our young people being able to get more educated and achieving better, as it were, as much as they're the most more academically qualified generation than we've ever seen. That's according to a survey that was done by the British Chambers of Commerce. The young people are unprepared and unequipped to enter the workplace. Now, this is a problem that we see not just here in the UK or in the Western world, but we also speak of it a great deal across the African continent. So this is an area that we need to look at. What do we do in order to ensure that our young people, as much as they're, collecting the degrees and learning more, but they are skilled, whether it's the soft skills or the other skills that are required in order for them to be able to be work ready. Again, according to the British Chambers of Commerce workforce survey, 88% of employers believe that school leavers were unprepared for work, and 54% believed graduates were unprepared for work. So the question is, our educational system seems to be faulty, because in as much as our people are picking up, again, as I said, their great qualifications, what are we teaching them about the skills that's required? That needs to be included in the process of our education. Now, when young people do find work, the other issues that they find that they're facing is that they're being paid less. Unlike the previous generations before them today, they were being paid better, but increasingly now, they're getting paid a lot less, and their jobs are also not as secure as what once upon a time used to be. So having looked at all of these challenges and issues that our young people are faced by, I'm not sure that there is a best practice per se in realizing the goals for our young people. But I do think that our governments can work to implement the SDGs as they are set out. Because if they were to work to implement them, it will set a better outcome for our young people and their future. When you look at those goals from goals 1 to 17, literally sets out, for us what should be happening. I'm going to try and quickly round up. So in general, it provides a great deal of hope for us if our governments could do that. But more importantly, our young people and the next generation, because then they'll have a better platform to kickstart on. It is also important that, our government will focus more on the inclusion. right across the world, we speak about the children being our future, but then, we don't see a lot of the involvement of the young in our governments or in leadership. Not that they're not trying. Yes, they should do more to participate, but we also need to create that avenue for them. So looking at the goals 4 and 8 in particular, if put in place by governments across the board, it will address the challenges in education as well as the employment. Goals 9, for instance, will provide an opportunity for our young people to become more industrious and entrepreneurs. Goal 16 will certainly help for a better society for all our young people. And then when we look at goals 1, 2, 3, and 10, if implemented, will again address these issues as preventative measures rather than so that it doesn't develop as we go ahead. So in conclusion, our young people are great agents of change. We all say that, we all know that, we see it, whether it's in our children or in their friends. And they should be mobilized. We should be supporting them to advance, and they are ready and prepared to be able to advance the Sustainable Development Goals to improve the lives of themselves, the health and the impact of the planet as well. They need the necessary skills, I've mentioned that, and the opportunity should be granted to them to be able to reach their potential. It's so important. So that I don't, let me just quickly fly down in my conclusions. Young people should be included to play a significant role in our governance. They should, across the world, you will find that we used to have provisions, here in the UK, for instance, we used to have youth centers available for them to be able to come together and develop skills together. We no longer have those provisions available. We also have to address the media and the way the young people are projected and the narrative that is put across. We need to be more positive. We need to do more for them in that. So, as much as the platform should be provided, our young people, as I've said, they need to also be willing to participate and to put themselves forward, so that within democracy, they can ask the questions of their leaders and hold them to account at all levels. I believe, finally, that it was the late Dr. Miles Monroe who said, the greatest tragedy in life is not death, but a life without purpose is the greatest tragedy. As much as we need to create the right educational environments and all of that, it is especially important that will help our young people to identify what their purposes in life is. Because when we walk in our purpose, life is more satisfying. Our contributions has a greater and more satisfying impact. And I think that this will help not just our young people to be who they are supposed to be, but it will also help for us to help them to be that very, and indeed we'll have a better, not just a better generation, but a better environment and planet. Thank you all so much for listening.
Thank you so much for that, Lady Priscilla. That was really, really, really insightful. Much appreciated. Okay, so next up we have Dr. Arjumand Zaidi, President at Youth for Human Rights India, head up and Uttarakhand Hand, and then United Nations Global Compact Network India. I'd just like to remind everyone that we have limited time remaining. So please just use the chat box just in case I send you a message about how long we have left. But thank you very much. You have the floor.
Thank you, Tanisha. Very warm greetings to you all, especially Her Royal Highness Princess Shepi. She was also in one of the events. We had the honor to hear that platform also. Queen Zainab and many other dignitaries, excellencies, ambassadors, youth speakers, and all the eminent speakers present here. A very warm greeting from India. At this evening. This is a great honor for me to be with you all and share my thoughts on some of the issues and some of the topics related to youth. I have heard many of the speakers, what they are doing and what they want to get implemented in the projects and lives, how we can ensure that SDGs are being implemented and how we can ensure that our youth are ignited. Here, I would like to, tell some of the things what I have done. what I'm not going to suggest what you have to do, but I am going to tell you what I am doing in the last 20 years and the 2 decades. I'm basically working for youth since last 20 years, and almost 4 million people I have ignited. My main agenda is to work with the youth and ignite them for sustainable development goals and the human rights. I strongly believe that if the human rights are being implemented and followed in the life of everyone, and the SDGs are being kept in mind, that we have to protect our environment, our earth, planet Earth, and we have to make everything sustainable. So these two things in combination can really make the world a better place to live. And we have to really ignite our youth, not only when they are in their 20s or maybe in teenagers, but at the time when they are small, young kids. So I'm going to different schools all over my country and addressing those young minds and igniting them to take part, active participation in making the world sustainable, in making the people to implement the human rights in their lives. See, if you divide the world in two parts and one part is not disturbing the other person's human rights, the other 50% people definitely will be at peace, and this first 50 people will be definitely in peace. So how to form the peace? This has to be told to these young minds so that when they grow up, they become the leaders, they transform the world, and they make the world sustainable, they make the world peaceful. So I'm making many peace walks. In my peace walks, many thousands of people, like 50,000, sometimes 10,000 people are walking with me for the peace. And these are all young people who are walking. And we are also making them the leaders in the sense like they are becoming the volunteers. There are more than 40,000 ignited youth who are special volunteers who go to different people and they talk about it. When they talk, everything has to be made a cool thing for them. We have to tackle these youth according to their mindset. We cannot go in the traditional way what we are doing as old people. Once we make these things so fascinating, that human rights are very cool thing for them. So you add some DJ, you add some music and something like which attracts them, and then you do it. So it has to be done that way so that these youth people are really integrating the things in their lives and they are committed and associating with us. And there is a compatible relationship between the youth and the adult. Once this compatibility will happen, then things will fall in place and everything will go very smooth. So this is what I am doing, and I'm seeing in my experiences, many of the youth, many of these young people who have really, really mastered themselves, those who have outshined maybe much better than us, they are doing and performing. The presentations I go to give to various schools and colleges to ignite this youth. When I go to any place in India, suppose in any other place, and I reach there, this team of volunteers, they come and receive me and they go to the presentation place and wherever I'm going to meet different youth. So these volunteers, they give such lovely presentations, sometimes unbelievable what they speak, sometimes what they do in their action, this is unbelievable. So only thing is we have to really inspire them, we have to encourage them and give them little support financially, because they are students, they cannot spend money. If we little bit support them and make them on the front row, they will do wonders for us. So this is my appeal to all of you. This is a youth forum and we have to support youth and we have to give them opportunity, platforms to speak, groom their personalities, make them more knowledgeable, add the values in their own living, add the values in their education, whatever best we can support to them. once we do something for them, they will automatically align to our mission. So it is not that first we tell them to align to our mission. First we do something for them, automatically they will align to our mission. So this is how we have to go, and I'm doing these things and I'm getting wonderful results. So if I can collaborate with any of you guys, I will show my work, I will show the people who are working with me, the volunteers will be introduced to you. This will be a great opportunity that way. So I wish you all very, very appreciative efforts which you are making. Wish you all a very humble beginning and humble request to you to start a new beginning of this era, and before I say it is a deadline, 2030 is a little far away, but in one click it will come. We will not realize when 2030 has come. So we have no time left. We have to really speed up our activities. We have to make our ambition more elaborative and more forceful, more impactful. So let us all together, and align with each other in association and make this world a beautiful place. Wherever we can help each other in each other's ventures, each other mission, vision. So that will be wonderful. So thank you very much, Tanisha, for giving me this opportunity to speak to all these wonderful people. Some other time, definitely I will show some more presentation of my work if I get more time, and I'll show you how we are going and proceeding further. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you to you as well. I think it was really important, the points that you echoed about collaboration. And I feel as though people have already taken that on and started exchanging contacts in the chat, which is really lovely. But thank you so much for your presentation, Doctor. Okay, so next up we have Dr. Delon Fraser. So you also have a few minutes there. Just monitor the chat and I'll communicate with you there. Thank you. You have the floor.
Thank you so much, Madam Moderator. Your Royal Highnesses, Your Excellencies, fellow panelists, other distinguished guests, and other protocols observed. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, and of course, trust we're having an excellent day. First, permit me to express my gratitude for being asked to be a panelist and to be part of the EcoHost Youth Forum 2022. I'm truly honored. Your Royal Highnesses, if there's one thing the past 2 years have taught us is how vulnerable we truly are. However, out of this vulnerability, we become more aware of our potential. We become more inspired and more innovative to make the necessary changes. We found that a hidden treasure in this pandemic, it's called opportunities. So just like blood is to the vein, the youths are to our society. Their voices and their actions help to shape the world into a better place, not just for today, but for the future. And this we cannot ignore or forget. Hence, the roles of our youths are so crucial when our very existence, and of course, in some instances, coexistence is being threatened by the pandemic and other forces beyond our control becomes important. So there are many challenges that we were faced as being young people living in a society pre, during, and post-pandemic. And in fact, some of these challenges were alluded to earlier by some of the speakers, not being able to be confident in the face of adversity, not being able to get the quality education that they deserve, learning how to turn lemons into lemonade instead of seeing challenges, see opportunities, better role models, better financial management, learning that there is a marriage between leadership and communication, learning not to set barriers to their own growth, learning that acquisition of knowledge is not just for self-gratification, but to better mankind, and how to create generational wealth. And so these are some of the challenges that I have identified during the pandemic. And so here are some of the solutions that I would like to offer and share. Moving ourselves or moving the young people need to move themselves from the unknown to the known. And that is understanding and appreciating that they are challenges. You see, once we don't understand and appreciate these challenges, then we will not be able to find the solutions and how to deal with them. So we need not to live being all naive that yes, there are challenges, but it doesn't concern us. Every single challenge that is facing our society concerns each and every single person, including our young people. And it is my true belief that we need to have stronger relationship with our youths and government. They need to have more dialogue, more exchange, instead of governments telling us what to do, involve us in the process and take us there. These are the things that we're looking for. We need to have more and more role models, counseling, especially during the pandemic. And of course, the previous speakers went at length at showing us how these would have impacted us on a great deal, psychologically, socially, emotionally. And so it is these little groups and it is these platforms that we need to encourage and inspire other young people to take the mantle, inspire them to be more role models, more mentorship programs to help them grow. In fact, I believe that young people should also look at finding their God-given skills and use it. Live with purpose, as our speakers would have mentioned. Priscilla would have just mentioned this, finding your purpose and living with it. I've read an excellent book by Dr. Miles Monroe, and it tells us every single day, live life with purpose. So once we find our purpose, we use it and we live it, because that is what has been given to us by birth. We're ordained. So use it. And then we need to participate in more UN forums like this one, where we get to network, share experiences, and develop a think tank in a small place, but which creates big impact globally. And then we look at having more protection under the law, knowing exactly what our rights are. How can we be fighting for something if we really actually don't even know what it is that helps us and protects us? So my thing is the solution to these challenges is ensure that you know what the law, what provisions the law makes for you, use it and ensure that you are properly protected. Making full use of technology is crucial. And this pandemic would have ensured us that technology has been great. Some of us has now become Zoom masters, publishers using Amazon, online courses. You're sitting from your living room and you're actually doing courses in Australia, in the UK, in Ghana. And these are the opportunities I was talking about when we were faced with the vulnerability and the times of COVID-19. We look for the opportunities, maximize on them. I can also say with respect to education, we've now have improved classrooms where you have smart classrooms, remote teaching, agri-tech, which is fusing agriculture and technology, as was highlighted by Mr. Eno and Mrs. Amaka earlier. Being data-driven, using what is out there as young people, use it to our maximization so that we can get better results, excellent results for our people and ourselves. And then one of my important ones too is training in public speaking and leadership. I find that a lot of people love to speak. Young people have the tenacity to get their ideas out there, but they don't know how to. So I believe that we can support them by showing them the marriage between leadership and communication. Last, but surely not least, never stop adapting. Never stop looking for opportunities. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That was packed, right? Every point was like, take notes, take notes, take notes. Thank you so much for that. So I'd like us to move on to the next speaker. His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Dennis Antoine, former Assistant to the President of the UNGA 69 session, author and chair and advisory council and center for the SDG Global Education USA. So thank you very much for joining us, and you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Distinguished moderators, panelists, dignitaries, Dr. Ada, and all participants. It is quite significant that we focus on the launch of YOUTHGETHER Global, which took place on October 31st, 2020. It was and remains about youth globally connecting to engage in collective action to promote in an intergenerational manner to achieve transformative change as a catalyst for deepening understanding and providing platforms for sharing the values and norms that will build inclusive communities united for advancement and successful achievement of the 2030 Agenda and beyond. Now, is it about doing the best ever done or doing the best we can? This question looms. The past 2 years, the initiatives of YOUTHGETHER Global have led to the promotion and education and training of youth coordinators, but only to be derailed by the pandemic. The mission and vision of YOUTHGETHER Global must now be elevated to be among the highest priorities for continuing the mobilization of youth. The speed of the application of technology in education, communication, and commerce, which emerged during the pandemic, helped to salvage some of the losses suffered in the pandemic. But we see that underserved communities have been still left behind. The need for retooling and retraining and relearning virtually versus in person for old and for the youth became and is a reality. Technological skills for engaging and training and taking advantage of the digital economy, digital currency literacy, and the marketplace are essentials for youth. In our 8-year drive in the decade of action, we now have an 8-year deadline to meet sustainable development goals. Now, the underserved population of Africa and the developing world are still at the development crossroads. The big question remains is how to achieve inclusive and sustainable development to meet the twin agendas of Agenda 21 and the 2030 Agenda. Now, the call goes out, and I quote, for ensuring women and girls have equitable access and benefits from conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity, as well as the informed and effective participation in all levels of policy decision-making related to biodiversity. We have to remember Agenda 21. Today, we need empowerment action, not just for literacy. Our youths around the world need opportunity for releasing their creativity and innovation to explore what is becoming the greatest source of wealth today, data. Proper collection and application of data in all aspects of our cultural, traditional customs can be a game changer. There is need for collaboration and cooperatives and entrepreneurship, as was mentioned in this conference. There is need for data centers, which are in high demand. There is need for cybersecurity to deal with data breaches. Our youth must learn how data is shared and cared for. Because we give it out so freely, how is it used for and against us? Now, becoming technology wise is understanding the logic of technology. It is about techno-logic, not ology. This tool, when you turn on your computer, it asks you, are you a robot? Is it the computer? Or is it the input in the artificial intelligence that is growing on us? And we respond. We respond and we share freely. So, as I close my very engaged mind, because there was so much said today that was useful, I only wish to say, becoming technology wise is understanding the logic of technology as a tool, informed practice and policy in agriculture, in commerce, that can focus on replicable development of sustainable urban villages across the global youth community, is what I am advocating today. I want to thank Dr. Otter for her continued leadership and inspiration, and all my panelists and distinguished royalties for their participation. This, to me, was a very, very enlightening and forward-looking conference. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. On the topic of technology, especially. I know I can see in the chat that a lot of people are saying, you know, technology isn't everything. And I think it's a good thing to point to you and remind you guys that we didn't always have technology, actually. So where technology may not feel like it's everything to you, we are able to recall living in a world of word of mouth, you know, going down and picking up the book of phone numbers and company names and calling each company individually just to understand if they even exist, let alone if they have what you need. And so I think sometimes, you know, there was a really interesting saying that when privilege kicks in, the hunger dies. And I think despite our financial circumstances or, you know, access to education, there are times at which those who may not have been around for those times, there are times at which I think it's important for you to remember that this is actually an addition to the process, which is beneficial and which we lived in a world before it. And definitely you can trust us that this is adding value in as much as, of course, you know, the human actors in the process may be taking advantage. There's still a lot of value added to a lot of sectors, including agriculture, once technology is used there. And especially when you mentioned cybersecurity, because I think a lot of people are failing to understand that with most sectors, most of the sectors are like small worlds. They all need their own kind of cybersecurity approach. The way in which you approach cybersecurity in a university is totally different to an agriculture firm, you know? And so there are opportunities everywhere. So I'm really, really grateful for your contribution there. Thank you so much for that. So I believe that we are now on to our event summary and outcome, presented by Mary Currick, the Director for Building Institutions and Networks at YOUTHGETHER. So YOUTHGETHER Global. Mary, are you available?
I'm here. Wow, packed full of gems that we heard today. And I took copious notes, lots of them. And so I'm just going to kind of go briefly through them. And I'm going to end up with what the outcome in my mind as consolidating everything that I've heard and seen today. So, you know, first, Tanisha, thank you. What a great job you've done, yay, of not only introducing and keeping us on flow, but also to let us know what we're doing here today and to kind of give us an explanation at the very beginning of what ECOSOC is all about and what this youth forum's sort of genesis and how we're moving forward to rebuild from COVID is basically where we're at here for the youth. And then from the standpoint of YOUTHGETHER Global, to explore the applications for a sustainable future. And we went through the idea of empowerment, best practice for actions, identification of resources, and exploring potential for building back from COVID-19, all of these things wrapped into what we were trying to do today. Dr. Ada, always wonderful with being right on cue with what we need to be doing, always, not only from YOUTHGETHER Global, but for all the activities and events that she's involved in with youth. So this event, of course, with Youth Actions Towards Sustainable Future in concert with the UN Agenda. So thank you, Dr. Ada. Then we moved on to Ambassador Dr. Bannister Devon, whom I interviewed on my platform not long ago. So thank you very much. Love how he ties the talent side of education to the official part of taking that education and degrees and moving it into a space where you can actually have a sustainable future and career. And so Ban Arts that he kind of leads allows us to take that talent and bridge, I love the word bridge it to impact, and achievement, learning and teaching and partnerships and a full-scale approach to official education that translates into money and job security and moving on with your impact life that you have. So they help to equalize resources, love that word, equalize the resources so that it's fair for all and provide opportunities, particularly to those less privileged. So thank you, Dr. Devon. I'm probably not going to say the name right, but Atashande. Okay, Dennis. I'm going to say Dr. Dennis. Culture is very important, but doesn't make us different. I love that saying. Does not make us different. We must work together, and education should be a diversity endeavor, appreciating all people in a global setting. So if I don't say these quotes exactly the way that they were said, please excuse. But those are some of the takeaways that I have gotten. His Excellency, Dr. Osita Anamika, YOUTHGETHER global initiatives kind of reviewed a bit about what we're doing there. And the focus for 2022, empowerment, exchange, education, and entrepreneurship, the 4 big E's there. And what we're doing now is the new resource development for youth and support through the SDGs, and that YOUTHGETHER Global, we're all about capacity development, deployment and development, and leading and sustaining through their dreams. And what I love that he said, and I've heard him say it a whole bunch, is become job creators, not job seekers. That is what we're after in that entrepreneurship vein. So becoming leaders and identifying resources and opportunities, what we're all about here at YOUTHGETHER Global. And then Dr. Anne-Marie Armstrong, what a wonderful presentation that started out very personal. And we all love those personal stories that get us right off the bat. And the pictures that she shared of her 15-year-old daughter and how she was pre-pandemic, the vibrance that she was exhibiting, and then how she came to maybe more a depressive state, isolated, and how that impacts the youth is what she was sharing with us. So some of the jarring statistics that she shared with us on how challenging the results will be and how hard it is for us to turn those around, and that we really need to pay attention to mental health right now, and that be a global concern. Ensure that every child has access to high quality, affordable mental health care is one of the takeaways I've got there, and to teach them to act on their own behalf, to kind of step up and understand that it's often on your own shoulders if you need to kind of see where you can find help, along with the people around you who need to be aware and watching what's going on. Dr. Dexter Todd, the quote that he shared with from Nelson Mandela, education is the most powerful weapon which one can use to change the world, hit me strong. And I'm sure it did a lot of you. And so we went on to another quote, education's purpose is to replace an empty mind with an open one. I hope everyone remembered that. What keeps us in poverty around the world is a lack of education, something he mentioned. And then once you have a dare to dream, you must pursue your dream and consider it absolutely necessary to go after that dream. So we can no longer think nationally. This is a big takeaway from this one. We can no longer think nationally in your own box. We must be thinking and acting more from a global space. So thank you very much, Dr. Todd. Queen Zainab Idris, if I said your name right, transformation can happen through agriculture and agribusiness as a pathway to sustainable development for youth. Wonderfully put, and honestly, such a big topic, especially in certain areas of the world, particularly Africa. That youth really see that as a family thing that's always been done. It's almost like gardening. It's not really something that they look at as sustainable for themselves, and it doesn't excite them. And so talking through that, the 3 points that she made, and then helping to change the mindset of the youth to understand the benefits to it and how it can excite you toward being able to create that sense of this is a business and I can run it like one. And that was her next point, is planning, treating it like a business. And then action, empower with success stories, consistent support and skills development, and give them a voice. Allow them to be involved in how it rolls forward. Not every agricultural business is going to look the same. You know, it doesn't need to be the same. And so being able to help them carve out their own niche there. Princess Sheppy, awesome. Thank you for writing Heard on the intervention for youth and communications, youth voices. Who you know is important, but what you know, this is how it ties to that person that you know. So great quote there. Amaka Aguilu shared with us the fact that she had put together 40 external and internal assets that support your youth growth. And a couple of them support from people who you love and care for. I think that was number 1. And I think that's just key about everything that we do. Commitment to learning. Does the youth have a sense of self-worth, social skills, and inner confidence to project forward? That's something that we all need to consider. She also gave a resource that might have been in the chat, because I was picking up on some of those things too. I don't recall. She might have just been answering a question, but NAMI, National Association for Mentally Ill, I think is what it is. I have actually gone through one of their courses for my own family member that was involved. It is excellent. It's a great resource for people who are thinking about help for mental illness. And it doesn't have to be the person who has mental illness. It can be the family members and those who love that person. Ibis, concept of understanding each other opinions and views, important. That's where that diversity piece comes in, diversity and inclusion. Free speech should be extended to the youth and need inclusive democracy. I think I saw the way it was put in the chat. He had a quote here, education is a step to innovation, which I think is really important, that youth need to embrace change. And I think there's some thought there that maybe they're not as inclined to do so. Simeon Peters, important to build on different types of education, mathematical, linguistic, musical, so that it's broad scope, not just narrowed. Help youth to self-discover, that they be able to solve problems on their own better if they would be more inclined to understand themselves better. Create systems for transformation. Education alone does not change the mind and isn't structured to help youth discover themselves. But if we can empower them in a way that can help them solve their own problems, they'll be able to help solve bigger problems around the world. And those that tie to the SDGs, most important. So social intelligence, very important there too. He mentioned that. So also Her Excellency, Dr. Diana Kennelly, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Love that. Very good. Thank you for sharing that. Current education systems do not address talent development for youth, and how we create these tools, these environments and tools that help youth uniquely find their unique talent so that they can serve from that unique talent. So how do we work toward a solution there? And that was a question she brought up. She shared a couple of resources, the DISC test and also the Gallup Strength Finder as potential resources for us to check out further. So thank you, Diana. Lady Priscilla Wickpo, challenges youth facing today are same as generationally impactful. Interesting concept there. There are a couple of new pieces here put on or brought on by the pandemic. Mental health and isolation issues. This generation is less likely to be susceptible for social problems, but they're more apt, and they are more apt to be academically inclined. But they are encouraged to live life in a box. Everything that happens in a virtual or online world is contributing to some isolation, which is causing maybe problems for youth in the future when they're living everything that they do from that one little box. So though more academically better, they need to be better prepared for work environments, which we feel like they're not right now. And they need to learn the importance of their own purpose, because just like Ambassador Kennelly said, that that sense of purpose and that talent that's tied to it is what propels you forward. Dr. Zeta, or Zadie, ignite youth as small kids toward taking active part in implementing human rights and sustainable development, and make it interesting and approach them on their own level. That's what I took away from that, and very good about getting them younger instead of at that teenage age. Dr. Dylan Fraser, what a great speaker. Very good job. Education isn't just for self-gratification, but for the betterment of mankind. What a beautiful way of putting it. Every challenge of society impacts all, and more dialogue between youth and government so that they include youth voices in what they're doing is important. And youth need to know their rights so that they can know how they are protected and utilize that. His Excellency, Ambassador Dr. Dennis Antoine, need for retooling, retraining, and relearning for all is a reality that we need to face right now. Tech skills for taking advantage of digital economy is essential for youth. Yes, thank you for that. And the need for data centers, cybersecurity, and everything that comes along with that cybersecurity, important. And becoming tech wise is understanding the logic of technology. Very good. So thank you so much. So in all of that, the sort of the big picture outcome that I see is that we need more inclusive education, diversity, and all on a global platform so that we're not in our own little silos. We need to equalize resources and opportunities so that everybody has a share opportunity there. Empower mindset shifts for self-discovery and provide consistent support. Help youth envision benefits to agriculture as a business and embrace their own dreams. Youth need to envision entrepreneurship to create jobs and embrace change in innovation. And globally, we need to address mental health aggressively and broadly. Education as a structure as it is right now, it doesn't really work globally, and we need to really concentrate on preparing these youth for work and help them discover their own unique talents and purpose so that they can contribute and help themselves solve their own problems as well as the bigger problems out in the world. So those are just some of the bigger takeaways that I came out with, and I'm going to turn it back over to you, Tanisha, and just say what a wonderful event. So kudos and praise to the organizers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, definitely. And in fact, really lots of praise to Dr. Adan as well for her time in putting this together, even while we are here. So I guess our final speaker today will again be His Excellency, His Royal Highness Prince Dr. Rosita Animeka, Chairman of the Governing Council, YOUTHGETHER Global, and President of Sub-Saharan Open University Africa. I think I've said YOUTHGETHER so many times now, I can't say it anymore. Please, Your Excellency, you have the floor. I think you're still muted.
Thank you so much, Tanisha. Thank you for excellent moderation. Thank you for your time, and thanks for all the effort you put into this. I want to begin by saying thank you to His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Dennis Antoine. He has always been my mentor. I learned so much from him since I started this work with Dr. Ada, and I have to learn more because he has an open door. Thank you so much, Your Excellency. God bless you, sir. God bless you. My Madam Chancellor, thank you for this one, and thank you for working so assiduously, behind the scenes for the last 2 months to organize this. I worked with you, so I knew how much work you put into it. Dr. Bannister Devon, I want to thank you so much for being here. You've always been here with us. I want to thank you also for your commitment to the cause of YOUTHGETHER Global. Thank you, Dr. Dennis Asomba, Dr. Anne-Marie Armstrong, Dr. Dexter Ford, Queen Zainab Idris, Her Royal Highness Shep Matlang, Amaka Agwele, Eno Ibas, Simeon Peters, Her Excellency Dr. Diane Kennelly of the Leadership and Learning Strategy Department of YOUTHGETHER Global, Mahmoud Samba, Lady Priscilla Mikpo, Dr. Ajiman Zaidi, Your Excellency Dr. Devon Fraser, Mary Kurek, my Director for Building Institutions and Networks at YOUTHGETHER Global, and the one that didn't quite speak, but she was here with us all through, Dr. David Dan Mayanja from Uganda. I want to thank you all as we march on to 2030. We're 8 years away from where we're going, and we're going to keep at it. And we're going to keep working with you and recording our achievements together. Thank you again. Thank you again. Thank you so much. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I think that amazingly, we have gotten through so much information today. I don't even know how, I don't know how we'll quantify it all. But I can definitely say there's a lot of contact details that have been shared into the chat area. And definitely for those of you who have come here to look for networking opportunities, because that was highlighted often about the value and importance of it, I do think we should make sure that you have collected any of those details and have shared those on. And I'm very aware that there's a full calendar of events happening between the 19th to the 20th as part of this session. So please do take time to have a look at the full calendar and participate. Right? So we did also stream live on YouTube. I'm not sure how the relationship works with YouTube and Zoom, but you can definitely catch some of the chat over there. And I think if you need anything else, contact with Dr. Adar and the team at Youth Together Global. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining. It's been a wonderful morning with you, morning, afternoon, or evening with you where you are in the world. And I hope to see you again soon. Bye now.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless you. Your Excellency, thank you for your time.
Been an honor.
God bless you all. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone.